And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Right, attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time, and of course, 5:05 Pacific Coast. Bright and early. Mike, it looks like you're on the Pacific Coast. Dark outside, too. Anyway, good morning, everybody. At your Friday roundtable, of course, John McCary, Marlon, retired Detective Mike Smith. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's, before we jump right into this, I just have to say thank you again, everyone, for the continued overwhelming and humbling support for Derek. I appreciate it. And retired Detective Mike Smith has been instrumental in bringing awareness to this monster cancer that has affected Derek and many other children also. The average kid that gets affected by this rare monster cancer is about 6 to 8 years old. So we have to fight for our kids. Mike, thank you so much. Mike has put a T-shirt out there. He's got the link on his social media. We got the link on our website. So check it out. Mike, thank you so much. John, let's get right into it. Let's get into today's topic. Got a lot of news for you.
Yeah, a ton of news. So we were just kicking around the idea of what would happen if DOGE and Elon Musk came into the NYPD and started to do an audit of all of the functions in the NYPD. I think, there's a lot of different functions. I mean, the first thing is we're in public service. I just saw that Pam Bondi is going into the LA Sheriff's County office. And they're actually LA County Sheriff's Office is being investigated for holding up gun permits. It amazes me that they started with the LA County Sheriff, because I could only imagine how many are sitting in 1PP right now. There was recently a report by Dan Rivoli on New York One about how many gun permits are sitting there, that people cannot get gun permits. Retired cops cannot get their pistol permits renewed, having huge issues coming out of there. I think the majority of it has to do with incompetence. A little bit has to do with it's intentional as well. Eric Adams is an anti-gun, pro-China, pro-communist mayor. People want to paint him out to be MAGA, which he's anything but that. And he's definitely anti-gun lobby. And the only way for you now as a citizen to invoke your Second Amendment right inside of New York City and get a carry permit, a concealed carry permit, is you need an attorney. So you need to hire an attorney, which again is a violation of the law. So there's thousands upon thousands of gun permits sitting in the NYPD right now. Eric, what are you thinking about that? And then let's go around. We're going to go around equipment. We're going to go around cars. We're going to go around recruitment, hiring, promotions. What do you think just about that? This is the easiest thing. We do gun permits. We check your background. If you're clean, if you fit XYZ, you should get a gun permit as per the law, as per the Supreme Court ruling 2 years ago that New York City was violating people's constitutional rights, Second Amendment rights. What do you think about that? There's thousands and thousands of them sitting there. What would DOGE find if they walked into the licensing division?
I thought the same thing as you. I was like, wow, let's start with LA here. I mean, he said, because I figured the NYPD, especially in New York City with the licensing division, they must be so backed up right now with the fact that they're holding back these permits. And you said, and you're right. It's been over 2 years that the Supreme Court has made their decision. There should be no obstacles in getting a permit in New York, but we see it's out of control. But the fact that she started with LA tells me, wow, if New York is so out of control, what is going on in LA? And why did she pick LA to start at? So there's no doubt about it. If there's some type of DOGE, interjection with New York City, I think the numbers would just be astronomical. There would be no shock right now. But that's all right. It's a communist country right now in New York City. You can carry a firearm if you're an illegal alien, if you're a military-age male. You can carry a firearm if you're a gang member, because New York City Council wants to protect you and make sure there's no gang database. But if you are an obliged citizen, you can't carry a firearm. There's signs for you to let you know you can't carry that firearm. It's out of control. But that's New York City, the upside-down world. For years, and you know what? Nothing has changed, even with the Supreme Court case. It was always told to me that in New York City, there's only two people they want carrying guns, and that's cops and robbers. And now they don't even want the cops carrying the guns anymore. They just want the bad guys carrying them. It's absolutely ridiculous. Marlon, what are your thoughts?
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, chat. Well, the first thing that comes to mind right now is that the NYPD's budget is like $109 billion, and I'm curious to know like how much goes to firearms, because they're right now. I've heard they're like months backed up. So where's all that money going to? How much of that money is actually going to the actual services there? Because for years we've heard stories of guys of it taking like months, if not years, for people to get a firearm license approved by that division. So if Pam were to come to New York and to look there, first of all, you're going to see a lot of waste, right? And it's not surprising that with all the waste that in the NYPD, that the city's already blown through the overtime budget, right? So that's just my initial thoughts. Like I think that with all the waste in the department, very few of that money is actually going to the services that it's actually allocated for, including like firearms. And I think the backup in the license would actually reflect that.
But Marlon, how could they actually exceed the overtime budget when they have such an effective first deputy commissioner, Tiny Kinsella, to oversee that overtime? She's done such a great job. How could we actually have an excessive amount of overtime? I can't believe it. She did such a great job when she testified to New York City Council, and all the balance checks that they do. They added additional layers to actually make sure that this overtime is balanced and there's no excessive or misuse or abuse. I'm shocked. I think she's doing such a great job. I'm really impressed.
We'll get to the overtime, but
actually, Eric, if she did a good job, she would have been out. Actually, you see, you keep your job by doing a bad job in this department, and you get promoted that way. Okay, because city council is already harping at the 1 billion the NYPD's gone over, but you see anything happening to her right now? Nope.
So, but that's true. But we'll get to the overtime, and we'll get to the Tanya Kinsella too. But licensing division, we pay millions of dollars to staff this. It's a public good. You have a constitutional right to carry a firearm. Mike, what do you think you would find in the licensing division if you went there? Or is anyone doing their job there? Is it filled with competence? Is the CO? I know he's a great guy. He's a great guy. I know. I've been heard so many times what a great guy he is. Is that a competent environment? And I'm not blaming him totally. I'm not. No, I'm just saying.
Dude, I just left there, literally. Just left the licensing division in January, and it was a shit show from the beginning. The amount of people that were there waiting online to apply that weren't MOS was a lot. There was like 100 people waiting the morning I was there to try to take care of my stuff. And the problem is, you walk into that office, you have one guy doing prints, you got one person taking your paperwork, and the other 30 people back there, I just saw like eating food and talking to each other. No idea what their function was.
Anybody doing now?
Yeah. No idea what their function was. But it's just crazy, man. You know the deal. When you go into some of these units, you get two guys that are doing the work, and 90% of them are doing nothing. Nothing.
You know what the other 30 people are doing? They're watching the podcast. They're monitoring the podcast. You two are assigned to licensing. The other 30 are assigned to New York's Financial Title Filter podcast.
Even with the licensing, like, you're retired and you're getting your paperwork in, it's just like a complete clown show. Then they're banging you out for $100 to fingerprint you as an MOS. It's like, where is it all going? To what? What is it doing? It's just, it's a complete shit show in licensing division. And when did this start? Remember, like a few years ago, something happened. I forget exactly what it was, but it was with the CEO.
What? Oh, that was the corruption scandal. That was the corruption scandal. So what happened was the only way for people to get firearm licenses was you had to grease a Hasidic in Borough Park, and then when you paid him, he would go to the licensing division and he would get you a license. He would get you a
we
permit.
need to get that back, bro, because that's how things were moving along the right way.
But that's basically what's happening again right now. Like the only way for you to get a gun permit is you're either a retired cop or Eric Adams, and they're gonna bump you to the front of the line.
True.
Or you have to pay for an attorney. So that whole corruption scandal, it's still happening right now.
I mean, I know people that paid for an attorney. They paid thousands of dollars to get the carry permit. It's crazy.
Yeah. So
right, and think about that, right? Because that scandal was from 2017. So, John, it's almost a decade later, and nothing has changed. 2017 was the height of the federal probe for that corruption case. So we're talking about almost a decade, and nothing has changed. If anything, it sounds like it might even be worse.
Probably is worse now because there's a lot of people applying, a lot of guys leaving. So they're definitely crowded with people, overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that's just on the MOS end of it. And then, like I said, the retired cops can't get their licenses renewed. So that's a whole shit show, right? That's one public service. What about 911 calls? Since Adams took over, 911 response times went up 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 911, and we know what they're doing with we know what they were trying to do with the whole drone thing, where they were going to stop the clock by sending a drone there. What do you guys think about that? Like, what do you think? If you looked at if DOGE looked at that, like someone comes in, they audit the NYPD. Why are response time up? Is it because we have competent leadership? Is it because the supervision and the commands are great? Like what's happening there? Like why is that happening?
Well, there's no doubt about it, right? If they're going to say that misuse and misutilization of manpower, right? Something that Eric Adams put his footing on when he actually ran for mayor. And he said that in the NYPD, that police officers are not being utilized appropriately, and they're not allocated as they should be. And I have to say, in Mayor Eric Adams' defense, he was actually right at the time, right? There should have been an audit to determine what is the appropriability, what's the proper usage, what's allocated for manpower for the police department, especially as we're having a mass exodus, especially since he signed off on the mandate and allowed the best veterans to retire, vest, and some get even wrongfully terminated, just as we see here. Our family member, Marlon, fire detective from the NYPD, who should still be employed. And yet with that, we never had a proper audit. And if anything, the wheels have turned and things have gotten even worse under Mayor Eric Adams. And we had a unit of 86 some odd members assigned to social media. Talk about misusage of utilization of the police department. I would love to see a DOGE audit to determine what's the taxpayer amount of money being utilized for this social media unit, 86 some odd police officers, so that John Shell and Kaz Daughtry were able to protect their egos to a small podcast and journalists out there. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. The funding, the usage of manpower, if anything, has gotten worse under Mayor Eric Adams than it was before. And I have to agree with you, John. There are some administrative positions that are necessary and mandatory because of classified information and because it needs police perspective to be done by police officers. And there are administrative positions that can be switched to a civilian type role. There's no doubt about it. But there has to be done a fine print audit, and it's never been done. With Mayor Eric Adams, it's just completely gaslighting the public, and everything's a lie.
Mal, what do you think? Why is 911 response times skyrocketed under Eric Adams?
Well, we know the larger issue is the manpower in the department, but if you were to look at communications, I'm sure you'd find like a lot of the other problems in the department, a misallocation of resources, because so everyone knows that communications, their budget is $165 million, right? Now it's not the highest in the NYPD, but that's a lot of money, right? So the question is, like, is that money being used efficiently? Because the reason why I'm mentioning this is because if you recall, when we talked about the overtime abuse, right? There was 4 people from communications that were on the top 400 list. That's for the entire department. The highest, as a matter of fact, were civilians. Okay,
Yep.
let's remember that. Civilians from communications division. And not just that, but if you recall, months ago, there's a sexual scandal in communications division involving a captain, Captain Pagan, who Ed Caban kind of overturned the trial room's decision on him. So again, if you were to look at communications at 911, you're going to find inefficiency and misallocation of resources. But like we said, also a lot of it is due to the lack of manpower in the precincts right now, and the lack of manpower on patrol is what.
But does that fall on Eric Adams? Is what I'm asking. Like ultimately, like is the 911 is the reason the 911 are up. Yes, I agree with you. It's misallocation of resources and not enough bodies. Do those things fall on Eric Adams? Is it ultimately his fault, or is it just some phenomena that 911 calls are up and we don't know why people are leaving? We still haven't figured it out, and we don't know why manpower is down, and we don't know why everything's a mess.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it absolutely falls on Eric Adams. Remember, the mayor sets the table. Okay, you set the table for the behavior in your agencies. You set the table for the appropriate allocation of resources, and you set the table for consequences for misbehavior and inefficiency and just outright misconduct, right? And you can see this has trickled down in multiple agencies in the department, multiple agencies in the city, and multiple units within the department. And this is, what you're seeing there is a reflection of the all the nonsense that's happened at 1PP. I mean, look, like I said, Ed Caban could have come down with a decision for that captain as it pertains to communications, but he overturned it. So even with and that decision, by the way, touched on misallocation of money and resources, because the captain was alleged to be doing the same thing that Madry was doing with the overtime. So instead of coming out with a judgment there that righted the ship, Ed Caban overturned it and basically said that it doesn't matter. Okay, so again, this comes straight down from City Hall, because City Hall sets the table. Okay, and that hasn't happened so far. So,
well, listen, I think we have to agree that, especially working the NYPD, I could say working the NYPD in the Marine Corps, that leadership has to set the example, and leadership has to take ownership, and that's what's so important, right? If anybody's ever had an opportunity to read Jocko Willink's books, everything is about taking ownership. Extreme Ownership is the name of his first book. And what does that mean? At every level of leadership, there's a small unit leadership breakdown. We're supposed to take responsibility and supposed to take ownership. And Mayor Eric Adams is supposed to take ownership for every pitfall of the NYPD. And every pitfall of the NYPD does fall in his lap. He created a system that created mass exodus. He created a system that created a problem of retention, attrition. He's also created a system where it's not an attractable police department anymore. It's not an attractable profession. The NYPD was the GOAT of policing. And the NYPD is not a laughing stock throughout this entire country. There's no doubt about it. Mike, who knows best? Mike, you recently just retired, and you just put out on social media a good friend of yours who's obviously a firecracker in the NYPD, and she left for better pastures in Florida.
Yeah, dude, she was Brittany Owens, man. She was legit. She was a legit cop, like the real deal police. And she got hurt on the job, so they had her in the shield desk, like, as she was getting better and rehabbing. And during that time, she was like, you know what? This job's changing too much. Like, I can't be the police out there. And she wound up going to Jacksonville, which is like, dude, that's the rough part of Florida. Like, that's no joke, the streets out in Jacksonville, Florida. And she's out there running around, man, having a good time, really enjoying herself.
The Jacksonville used to be the murder capital of Florida.
Yeah.
the new sheriff there, TK Waters, he improvised this it's this revolutionary thing. It's almost called like broken windows, but he calls it proactive police work. And they cut the murder rate in half in only a year, and it's no longer even in like the top 10 of murder rates in Florida. It's absolutely like he went on the offense basically, and I think Jacksonville is a highlight of if you did a comparison, if DOGE did a comparison between Jacksonville and New York City, the NYPD, it would be night and day. Where everywhere that Jacksonville's succeeding. And including with recruiting talent and young officers. How many years did this girl have on the job, Brittany?
I think she had about maybe 10 or a little
10
less.
years.
10.
Experienced cop.
She was experienced, yeah.
Should have had another 10 to 20 years in the NYPD. So everywhere they're excelling, the NYPD's failing, including recruiting. And they don't pay a lot, and their benefits aren't anywhere close to the NYPD. Right. So, like when you hear that, oh, they need more money, it's not the money.
No, it's quality of life.
It's the quality of life. It's how you're treated. It's how you're treated internally. And so like Jacksonville, there's a bunch of NYPD guys there, but I know a lot of the Jacksonville sheriffs, and they all happy there.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to leave. Nobody wants to go to a different agency. Nobody's looking to go do anything else. And it's funny. He cuts the murder rate in half. And you know what? I saw this other revolutionary thing. You know what they do? You know how they deal with the homeless problem in Jacksonville? They go to the homeless people and they offer them services. And then if the homeless people refuse after having this homeless outreach unit go to them, right? It's revolutionary. Never heard of this before. We never did this 10 years ago, We didn't do this before Bill de Blasio. That's all a rumor. Those were all lies. Don't listen to anybody on this podcast. That's all lies. So they have this homeless outreach unit. They go out there. They offer services. And then only when people refuse, then they lock them up. Instead of like what the NYPD does, which is we don't do proactive police work. We show up to the scene of the crime afterwards. We try to investigate it afterwards. We throw everything on a failing detective squad that's going all the way down. We just keep piling it on as people are running out the door. Yeah, 500 cases. You can have 1,000 cases next year. Don't worry about it. Oh, yeah, and you can't do it 20 hours overtime a month. So we do that. And then what we do is we send all the patrol cops out to go arrest homeless people without offered services. And the DAs drop that, and we clog up the hospitals. We clog up the jails. We spend millions and millions of dollars each week locking up homeless people that are going to be out on the street doing the same exact thing the next day.
That's why you see 3 big states right now that are showing great results because they're using the same template. And that's Florida, Tennessee, and Texas. And if you look at those 3 states, they're getting a lot of NYPD cops. Exactly what you said, John. And Mike, same thing. They're experienced. They have time on the job. They've already been trained by the NYPD. They've been on the streets of New York City. They have a vast amount of knowledge. And they go to these police departments and they bring that knowledge. So it's smart leadership. It's smart leadership. And what did Jacksonville do? Jacksonville used the old template of NYPD in New York City that used to make us the GOAT of policing. Pre-de Blasio, right? Before we had de Blasio and de Blasio 2.0, which is Mayor Eric Adams, where we did intrusive police work. We had homeless outreach. It's funny how that was an old plan that used to work. And they say if it's not broken, don't fix it. But if sure, Mayor de Blasio, former Mayor Bill de Blasio, just completely destroyed it with the NCO program, the Neighborhood Coordination Officer program. And then Mayor Eric Adams just completely took the police department off the cliff. And no longer is the GOAT of policing. But Jacksonville is now the GOAT of policing in Florida because they took the old template of New York City and the NYPD of what used to work. It was effective for so many years. But of course, we have former Mayor Bill de Blasio and Mayor Eric Adams, which is far worse, and took this thing right off the cliff, and now we're a laughing stock in the entire country.
Well, think about the money that these states are saving in training from getting our guys right now. Because honestly, what do you do? A 2-week refresher when you go to these states, and then you're right out on the street. They're saving so much money on training alone, and it's like we get clowned here. Like it's just, dude, it makes no sense here. It really does.
Yeah,
Sorry, John, but I just want to say it completely fails on its face. This argument by the unions and anyone else that believes that it's about salary and it's about pay, because John just reiterated that in Jacksonville, your benefits are not nearly as good as they are in New York City. And yet, most of those cops you talk to right now, and I've talked to many cops who went to Jacksonville, Florida, they went to different parts of Tennessee and Texas, and they're all smiles. Sorry about that, John. I just want to get that in there.
Yeah.
No, but ultimately,
Yeah.
so ultimately,
if I could just also add.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah, Jacksonville is also in the top 10 of cities that have grown since 2022, right? With an increase of
actually number one in 24.
14,000.
Number one in 24 of
24?
growing locations in America. Number one.
Yeah. Meanwhile, by the way, New York City since 2020 has lost 800 and change, 800,000 plus people. Okay, so as we've talked about prior, like public safety and policing is the baseline to a city. Okay, if your city is out of control, people start fleeing, businesses start fleeing, and you can clearly see it here. So the future is only looking brighter for Jacksonville as you get happier, more productive police.
I remember driving out to you in 2024, John. And I remember you said the same thing. We were driving around, like, look around. This place is just flourishing. And we were talking about how, like, economically Jacksonville was blowing up. And I remember, when I left, driving through, and you could just see all the new construction coming up. It's flourishing. And yet, New York City's just been the great escape.
No, dude. Everywhere I go, I see someone's yelling my name. I go to Costco, John, what are you doing here? Like, everywhere I go, I see someone from New York or New Jersey. It's insane, dude. Absolutely insane. But so, like, my point was the mismanagement in the when you look at like the functioning of the outside functioning of the police. It's the same mismanagement on the internals when you look at the recruiting, the hiring, the overtime. I've been speaking to a lot of cops. Now that the mayoral race is heated up, everybody's like asking my opinion. I keep getting the same thing. Eric Adams is the best one for us. He's great for us. I never made so much money. I'm like, dude, you're in the detail, and now you're cut. You were never supposed to make 70 IA hours a month. You were never supposed to do that, but they were such poor mismanagers that they actually hurt you. This guy hurt you, but everything was according to plan. Mike retiring was according to plan. Marlon getting fired was according to plan. You retiring was according to plan. Me retiring was according to plan. He's told us what he was going to do, and he did it. And as a result of what he did, I'm going to play a clip for you of Eric Adams because I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm going to play a clip for you from Eric Adams. He told us what he was going to do. He said he was going to bring people out of the admin spots. He didn't do that. He absolutely did not do that. He actually grew the admin spots. He hooked up all his friends, and he gave away detective shields like they're candy to people that didn't deserve them. We just seen that recently with a second grader with 6 years on the job that was made detective with 2 years on the job that has 11 arrests, 2 more than Eric Adams ever effected. Absolute slap in the face to every detective. Not every, slap in the face the entire job.
Yeah, but where's like the unions and all that right there? Shouldn't they be up and actually saying something about that? Like, that's the reason why retention is terrible. Like, that's one of the reasons why right there. You're giving some nobody a promotion when you got guys that are outworked and just killed in the squad every day.
You're absolutely right. That's where we see the
crazy.
You're
he
absolutely
wants
right.
you out, Mike.
Yeah. But
Like, that's why I have no respect for the unions at all, bro, to be honest with you. None.
We hear a deflection from them, right? The deflection that we hear is, it's about pay, it's about salary. The reality is it's promotions. It is merit-based promotions that really deflect from camaraderie and morale because Mike Smith, you made second grade, right? Marlon, you made second grade, right? No, I'm sorry. You didn't. You guys didn't make. You were out there doing investigations as an FIO. Mike Smith was in the squad for many years. This kid's never even had a case, and yet you couldn't get second grade.
Crazy.
So look, he tells you exactly what he's going to do.
Kid.
He tells you exactly what he's going to do.
We can add that guy to the 20%.
To the what?
No, I was saying we could add that guy to the 20% of detectives that aren't actually like doing detective work.
Well, I think after this promotion, that 20% has rose significantly, and I think the 20% number that we had, that was 20% of detectives are not actually investigators. 20% of detectives are specialists. I think the number was highly flawed because I'm pretty sure there were a lot of first graders and second graders in there who are not counted as specialists when in fact they are. And he just added to that. But when you looked at the promotions last time, I think there were only like 3 to 5 detective investigators promoted, yet there were like 20 specialists promoted to detective. So we could add to that number. That 20% is probably really closer to 30%. And as this administration dwindles out, it's going to reach higher. It's probably by the time Eric Adams is done, hopefully he'll be done. This is his one term. It'll probably be close to like the 35 to 40% range of detectives are no longer investigators. And that's basically what their plan is going forward, is they're going to just give out specialist shields. At the same time, they're not promoting supervisors. When they have a huge, the supervisor rank, every rank is down significantly, except for the cowardly chiefs. There's more chiefs than we've ever seen before in history. Everybody's a chief. Mayor Daughtry is basically a chief. But
he's a chief in every city agency right now, apparently.
He's a chief. He's a fire expert. He's a sanitation expert. He's everywhere. I love it. I can't wait for all the press conferences. We actually got one to bring to you so you can hear it. But this is what Eric Adams did. He lowered the headcount. He lowered the budget. He completely mismanaged the NYPD. Response times are up. You can't get a pistol permit. Basic city services when you call 911 are down. When you call 911 because you were the victim of a petty larceny, someone broke into your car, you were in a car accident, a million different things. Someone graffitied your house, somebody graffitied your fence. Guess what? The police no longer respond. Fill out a report online because we don't care about it. Well, you could fill this report out online. We're going to close it to patrol, or it's going to go to the squad that's going to wind up closing it down the road later because they weren't able to gain and get valuable evidence on the scene at that time. Or they're overwhelmed with cases and they're like, we're not going to investigate a petty larceny. We're not going to investigate a criminal mischief. We're not going to do that because we have 500 cases that we have to get to. Most of them are felony cases. And hey, by the way, the DAs aren't going to prosecute this anyway, so we're just not doing anything. And here's Eric Adams telling you all of this. And now here it is when it comes to fruition. So if DOGE comes into New York City, the reason they won't come into New York City, the reason that they're going to the LA County Sheriff's Office is because for whatever reason, this federal government likes to pat Eric Adams on the head and say he's doing a good job, when in fact he is the most inefficient mayor in America today. If you want to talk inefficiency, Brandon Johnson looks like Warren Buffett compared to Eric Adams. Here's Eric Adams. Here's what he had to say, his plan, what he was going to do.
News last month that said, Eric Adams, the only former cop running for mayor, calls for NYPD budget cuts. So that tells me that you are for defunding the police. And what kind of cuts would you like to see?
And this is very interesting. That's why these conversations are so important. We can cut anywhere from $600 million to $1 billion. And here's why. Think about this for a moment, sister. You tell a plumber to fix your pipes in the house, but you come there every day and he's watering the garden. You say, man, I didn't hire you to do that. That's what we're doing in policing. We hire police to patrol and keep our city safe, yet they're doing clerical duties. There's no reason you're in a barrier detail. There's no reason you're a telephone switchboard operator or you're in some clerical place answering news inquiries. I say, let's drop the head count without dropping the patrol strength. Allow the attrition of officers. Take these officers that are doing clerical to get to patrol strength where they're supposed to be. This would allow you to really drop the numbers. 90% of the police budget comes from manpower. Then we can switch all the overtime that they're making and use what we're using right now. Right now, officers sit in traffic court. They sit in court for crimes. There's no reason for them to sit there. When you need to interview them, put them on Zoom, put them on some of the telecommunications and have them communicate and cut your overtime. Even at parades, we need to change the assignments of police officers. I don't need you making overtime sitting at a parade or street fair. There's no reason for that. Let's have a civilian population that's trained in crowd control. Police officers don't have to respond to traffic accidents. Police officers don't have to respond to aided. There are things that our police department should not be doing, mental health issues that's nonviolent. So we need to reshape public safety. We're addicted to 911. We're like,
So he says it right there, what he was going to do. And everyone's like, no, he was good for the department. He was going to cut $1 billion. He wasn't actually going to cut $1 billion. He was just cutting $1 billion away from the NYPD to give towards his friends for crumbs. He was going to lower the head count, which he is the most successful defund the police mayor in the country by far. He's done the best job at that. I mean, it's not even, here you go. There's 4 guys right here that should be police officers right now on the streets in New York City. He's done the greatest job at lowering the head count, right? And so he unfortunately he said he was gonna cut the overtime totally, right? Cops weren't even gonna go to parades. They weren't gonna go to civil unrest. It was gonna be civilians that did that. That's failed miserably, but we just stand there with our hands in our pockets. He not only did he not cut the overtime budget he blew out by hundreds of millions of dollars. And he didn't blow it out by putting cops on the street. He didn't blow it out by having cops do 911 calls. How did he blow out the overtime budget? How did he blow it out? They were having an ass for cash program in the chief of department's office. They were having parties where everybody at the party was on overtime. Everybody at the party. We made up the logo. Marlon made the logo. The party police. That's exactly what they were for 2 years. 2 years until Jessica Tisch came in, it was the party police. Now that Jessica Tisch came in, it's the propaganda police. Eric, DOGE looks at this. Is there anyone else to blame? Is this guy good for the NYPD? Like when I hear this, I'm like selfishly, maybe you think he's good for you, but now you're sitting there with 30 hours of overtime a month when you should traditionally, organically, probably be getting 50 because you're in a detail. And you're not going to get that going into retirement. Oh, and by the way, when you retire, they're going to put you in a separate class and drown your overtime out to lower your pension numbers. And you think he's good for you?
There's so many different layers to peel back here. Let's talk about some of the aspects that you just said, right? Let's talk about attrition and retention, right? What's one of the factors also that we lose manpower? The fact that some of these cops are getting so much overtime that they've actually faced a dilemma because of tier 2, right? You have to make the decision to retire sometimes with 19 years on the job because the overtime was just so astronomical that the following year, because now they started to do cuts after this on-duty booty program has been exposed, that now the pressure is put on the precincts. So now you're not able to get that overtime that you got before. And for some, they have to make that decision that, hey, maybe it's better to vest out with 19 years on the job and actually get rid and not even be concerned with the variable supplement for retirement because the last year I'm not going to get not even half of the overtime I had before. So you're forced to retire because your overtime is based on your last year. And that's because of Mayor Eric Adams, because the way that they budget funds is not for the benefit of the cops and not for the benefit of public safety. It's exactly what John said, is to reallocate funds so that their friends and their nepotism and their circle of cronies can benefit through private contracts, or they could benefit at the top tier of the upper echelon of the police department in excessive amount of overtime, or getting the benefits that they got when it comes to women or any other benefits by parties, whatever benefits that they could get with this administration. So when Marlon coined it as the party department, that's exactly right, and that's spot on. And that's what's going on with Eric Adams. But what did Eric Adams also say here? John and I had explored different candidates that are going for mayor right now. And we talk about defunding the police. And I said to John, if you remember, I said, who did it better? And the reality is we have the evidence right here. We have the information. It's all documented. And here you heard it from Eric Adams. He did it best. He defunded the police the best. He didn't even argue when she initially said in that interview about defunding the police. He never said, I didn't defund the police. He did. He agreed with it, and he continued to speak about how he defunded the police, how he cut the budgets, and what did he do? He loves to give everything a different name, a different moniker. He said he reshaped it, and that's where John Shell learns his moniker, right? When he talks about former police commissioner Ed Caban, that his house was raided. He said it wasn't raided. He wasn't in his underwear, right? They want to give everything a different name. But the bottom line is, who did it better? Mayor Eric Adams, he defunded the police. And if you're at that pinnacle point with 19 years on the job and you were getting 100 hours of overtime a month, and now they actually put the pressure and they actually stop that overtime, and you're in a detective squad right now, and you have to say to yourself, can I get even nearly half of that the following year? And the answer is no. And you're forced to retire, and you're forced to actually not take that variable supplement because you're not going to get a pension that's even suitable or close to what you're getting right now.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think, Marlon? Was Adams successful at his mission of lowering the head count and also cutting $1 billion from essential services in the NYPD?
You know, you got to give him credit because the stuff he said he was going to do, he did. You know, he did. I mean, look what he says.
And he said he didn't do it, right? He's
manpower.
not the defund the police mayor too, according to the Republicans and according to the Post and the Daily News. He did not support defund the police, but he just told you a worse plan than any person that actually supported it had.
I gotta laugh, Bob, because you're right.
Yeah,
you know what? He promised he would do it, and he did it. But he sold it in a way that I wasn't defund the police. I was reshaping it. Yeah. You know, let's put a civilian army out. That'll work.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
So let's go over it again to see what he did. Right? He said he was going to lower manpower, which he did with the mandate. Right? That lowered manpower. He said he wants to basically civilianize a lot of the functions of the police department. Yep.
The mandate.
He wants to civilianize. No, I'm sorry.
No, go.
No. I said he also wants to civilianize a lot of the functions of the department, right? He's busy doing that now. You know, back in September, it was noted that they put a chief enforcement officer into the Parks Department, right? I believe it's a Chief Wilson, maybe from Staten Island. So now and it explicitly said in that article that it's part of a pet program for the mayor to basically embed like a NYPD supervisor within these other civilian code enforcement agencies within the department. Well, what do you think he's going to do with those guys, right? Now he has Kaz in charge of those guys. What do we think he's going to do with them? He's going to expand their functions and try to plug the holes in the manpower gap that the department has. And look, in that video we just saw, he said it himself what he's going to do. He explicitly said civilian crowd control unit, right? He expect you guys in the Parks Department. Yeah, I want you, as you're watching us today, if you're watching us today, I want you to think about how much more efficient you can be and what more can you do that you never thought you'd be doing when you signed up to join the Parks Department. Because soon you're going to be doing it, okay? How much more efficient can you be for this city? Because soon you're going to be doing it, okay? And also, let's talk about unions, right? I said yesterday on Twitter, I took note of how when Adams was running, the union, specifically my union, the DEA, was telling us to vote for Adams because Adams has our best concerns at heart. He's going to take care of us. Well, did he take care of us? How's it working out for detectives right now? You guys that are in the squad right now. You guys in the squad that are getting overworked right now, how's that working out for us, right? After that, the reps were going around telling us to switch to Democrats so we could vote for Adams over Yang in the primaries. Months later, the same union is now quiet as guys like me and John are being pushed out because we refuse to vax. So how's it working out with less of us on the job to help on that? How is it helping the union when the union's current president now is basically telling us the problem and hoping that Albany will put some measures in there that'll some financial measures in there
fill out a form.
Encourage detectives to stay low. Yeah.
How's
How's it working out? I want all of those detectives who said that, who agreed with the union, that Adams was going to help us. I want you to thank Paul DiGiacomo right now, and to thank the union for the situation that you're currently in right now. Okay.
It's funny you say, Mike, in counterterrorism, Scott Moreau said there was 150 detectives. Now they're down to about 12.
Yeah.
What was it like in the squad?
Pretty much the same. We went from when I got there in the 5th, and again, the 5th is a small squad. We had 15, 16 detectives. And by the time I left, 5. So tell me how you run cases with 5 detectives who are getting detailed out and a bunch of other stuff during the course of the week. How are they supposed to investigate their cases the proper way? Just can't do it.
All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to talk about funding, right? And I think we're going to talk a little bit about New York City, too. Should DOGE audit New York City? And that's obvious. 100% they should audit the NYPD. But we're going to bring you someone who was actually running the NYPD. And we'll do an interview we'll watch an interview of Kaz Daughtry, as well as a lot of stuff that's coming out about the Adams administration. This episode is being brought to you by Fund the First. Check out Fund the First for any fundraisers. They have all verified campaigns, meaning nobody could put a fundraiser together for you or anyone in your family without first being verified. Plus, they don't take as many fees as the other major platforms that you are all familiar with, right? So this is the fundraising platform. We have to break the phrase, "Oh, let's start a GoFundMe." It should be, "Let's start a Fund the First."
Ever wonder who helps our everyday heroes when they need support? Enter fundthefirst.com, a unique crowdfunding platform dedicated to first responders, their families, and their friends. Unlike typical sites, we don't take a cut. Every dollar goes directly to those in need. Whether it's for emergency medical bills, family emergencies, or equipment, fundthefirst.com is there. It's our chance to give back to those who risk it all for us. From police officers to firefighters, these heroes deserve our support. Want to make a real impact? Check out fundthefirst.com and show our heroes that we've got their backs. It's time to support those who always support us.
All right, we're back. So Kaz Daughtry does a news interview yesterday with Fox 5. You could tell it's highly choreographed. You could tell that it's springtime because he has his new springwear jacket that's highly embroidered with his deputy mayor, all the embroidery around it. Jacket with the embroidery alone has to be around $200. He probably has a slew of them in every different color. We haven't yet to see him wear the same piece of embroidery twice. This is all taxpayer funded money going toward equipment, right? And from what I could tell, he's still running the NYPD and is still part of the NYPD budget. But this interview, highly edited, highly choreographed, and yet he continues to bumble. So check out this interview, Kaz Daughtry, and then let's go around and talk about it.
Public safety 3 weeks ago, and he's coming into the role, of course, amidst lots of turmoil at City Hall.
Fox 6's Linda Schmidt met with him today to discuss that and so much more. Linda. Yeah, well, as a deputy mayor, he works for the mayor, right? And we all know that the mayor is not doing very well in the polling right now as far as his chance for running for re-election. So what that ends up meaning, though, for Kaz Daughtry is that it looks like right now he has about 8 months to accomplish really what he wants to do, improving public safety, mental health, and quality of life issues.
New Yorkers should expect that I'm not a Monday through Friday, a 9 to 5 deputy mayor. I am a Monday through Sunday, sun up to sundown, and sometimes after sundown.
Kaz Daughtry, the new deputy mayor for public safety in the city, has been with the NYPD for about 20 years, and he arrives at his new position at City Hall after an avalanche of corruption scandals that have led to multiple resignations at both the NYPD and City Hall. Recently, one of his mentors, former Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry, abruptly resigned after sexual misconduct allegations.
What has it been like for you, though, to see some of the top administrators within the NYPD, people that you've known for decades, going down around you? It almost seems like dominoes. What has that been like for you? And then to continue to work?
Well, like I said before, I wouldn't say I'm in a cloud of dust, but I am focused, like I am laser focused on getting the job done.
Mayor Adams tapping Daughtry for his new top post 3 weeks ago after his predecessor, Chauncey Parker, resigned, along with 3 other deputy mayors. They stepped down in protest of Mayor Adams allegedly cooperating with President Trump's immigration policy in exchange for federal corruption charges being dropped against the mayor.
So the bottom line is, you are saying to New Yorkers, you are not under the thumb of the president.
I'm under. I wouldn't say I'm under the thumb like that. I don't appreciate that statement. What I will say to New Yorkers is that they have a commitment from me in this role as a deputy mayor of public safety, deputy mayor for public safety, that I will ensure that when they come into New York City, that they are safe and that they feel safe, and that we're going to continue to drive down crime.
Daughtry's job is to coordinate city law enforcement agencies on public safety matters.
You do have some critics who say that you have risen through the ranks into managerial positions without having the managerial experience, and they equate that to your relationship with the mayor, a friendship and a professional relationship, as well as your friendship and professional relationship with the former Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry. What do you say to your critics?
Like I said before, I am focused on providing the services, the essential services that they need for New Yorkers. What I'm asking New Yorkers for is to look back at all the things I've done as a deputy commissioner for operations, the assistant as assistant commissioner, and my time as a not only as a New Yorker but as a police officer. I get stuff done.
And Deputy Mayor Daughtry.
All right, enough of that.
Eric Adams taught him well.
Mike, what do you think about PPL Daughtry now being the deputy mayor and this interview? What he just had to say here?
It's a disgrace, man. Like, he obviously has not a clue what to do. He didn't have a clue what to do when he he's still in the NYPD, but when he was suited up, what did he do? He flaked collars and got thrown out of Brooklyn court, was never allowed to testify again. That's the guy you want to be the deputy mayor of New York City's public safety? Dude, it's just you said it before, Eric. It's like everything upside down in New York City. It's bizarro land.
Eric, what do you think? What'd you think? What'd you get from that interview, dude?
I can't stop laughing because it was so orchestrated, so well prepared. But I'm looking at him because, John, you and I always talk. There's like something wrong. I'm watching him, and he's like moving his mouth, like, you know. There's something wrong. There's legitimately something mentally wrong there. I'm looking at him because we talk about it all the time, and I really just wanted to focus in. Like, there's something wrong there. There's no doubt about it. And he really learns from Eric Adams and, you know, his mentors not to answer the question, just completely deflect from it. That was a valid question. He should have answered it. He should have owned that question. And the question was simple. You climbed the ladder without having to go through the same grind as your counterparts. And how do you people are asking questions. How do you show that you're the one for the job? And he didn't answer the question. He just said, I get stuff done. That's a great slogan that you got from your mentor. But what does that mean? What does that look like? What is getting something done? That's where he should have been humble enough to say, hey, I've been blessed to have these mentors that put me in this position. Here's what I learned. Here's what I am doing. Talk about what you're doing. Not just say I get stuff done because that's what you heard from Daddy, but what's actually coming from you. And, man, let me tell you, that's some embroidery. I want to see what his walk-in closet looks like in Long Island. I want to see what kind of uniforms and suits that he has, in his embroidery. I mean, could it have been any bigger to let you know who he is?
He has one for every city agency, bro.
But that's the bottom line, is he's learned this line. There's no doubt about it, John. You and I talked about this. That was completely orchestrated, and that was choreographed. He was prepared for every question, and it was just, let me just stand there and just say I get stuff done. Eric Adams is completely grooming him. Don't answer the question. Just answer it in the manner that you want. That's exactly what he did.
Wait. But he was prepared for every question. But What do you think of his performance? I mean, like I agree. It was definitely given to him, the questions. I probably think there were a couple of takes on the questions. I mean, he sounds like a bumbling idiot. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. And what are we looking back on at his time as a police officer, that he lied, that he flaked collars? What are we looking back? That he drove Jeffrey Maddrey to go do the dirty? Tabitha's on here often. She says exactly what Kaz Daughtry was doing.
Spot on.
Right? What are we looking back on at his time as a police officer? I'm looking back at a time someone that should have been fired. I'm looking at a police officer that should never been promoted to third grade detective. I'm looking at a police officer that should have never rose to the rank of first grade detective. All he did was do like white glove service, driving Jeffrey Maddrey and Eric Adams around. Eric Adams while he was campaigning, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm saying, what'd you do? Then he makes assistant commissioner. What'd he do besides attack this podcast? Send criminals after it, utilize the CRT team. What did he do? The drone program? Shark Week?
Rob, shout out to our brother Rob Luke.
What do you do? Look, what do you do? What do you do? How did Shark Week work out? Spring's coming up. What do you do?
We had drones going. You need drones out in the ocean. Rob Lucash says, Eric, his bed sheets have a bigger patch. There's no doubt about it. And that's what I'm saying. Listen, I have no problem if you're not the best speaker. And that's okay. But what I do appreciate is humility. And that's where he should own it. Because he didn't even answer the question. He should have just been honest and said, yes, Jeffrey Maddrey was my mentor. Eric Adams, I have a close relationship. They have helped me propel my career, and I'm appreciative and I'm thankful that I'm in this position. That's not what he says. He's saying that he gets stuff done. And what he's saying is he gets more stuff done than his counterparts that he didn't have to go through the same grind, but he got more done than they did. That's where I have a major problem. It's an epic fail because what did you do just to say you got stuff done? Mike Smith retired from the squad. He got stuff done. Marlon was an FIO. He got stuff done. John, you were running a whole unit throughout the entire city. You got stuff done. I was a special operations lieutenant. I got stuff done. We weren't elevated by rocket fuel. He needs humility, and that he doesn't have. There's no doubt. It's an epic fail. Answer the questions. Be descriptive and depictive. Let us know who you are. Not through Eric Adams. He didn't even answer the questions at all. Epic fail.
Dude, I saved the city millions of dollars, and Kaz Daughtry spent millions of dollars. There's a huge difference there, right? Like, nobody's getting their crumbs under me. Everybody's getting their crumbs.
Did you have embroidery, John? Did you have a?
I didn't have any embroidery. I didn't have any embroidery, nothing. Marlon, what'd you think about that interview, dude? Oh, and here's, by the way, up on the screen, we got the host of the One Tough podcast to listen to, Bo Dito, DEA President Scott Monroe, now DEA President Scott Monroe, and former DEA President Paul DiGiacomo, all happily celebrating Eric Adams at his win when he wins the race. So this is his victory party. They're all so happy. Everybody's very happy. Rumored to have held fundraiser for him, actually, as they're telling you guys to switch to Democrat to vote for Eric Adams because he's going to be good for the department when he has gave the department the biggest black eye that we've had since the Marlon Commission. So I think, what a slap in the face to New Yorkers and to the New York City Police Department. Marlon, what'd you think about that interview from the now Deputy Mayor Kaz Daughtry?
Well, you notice every couple of months there's a new fluff piece for Kaz, and it always begins Kaz Daughtry, new title, is settling into his role, right? Every 6 months, because this guy gets promoted so often, In fact, he looked like he had to think about his title when she asked him, because he was like, I'm the deputy mayor, pause, public safety. He gets promoted so much he doesn't even know what his role is today, But listen, by his own metrics as the assistant commissioner and as a deputy commissioner in the NYPD, what did he accomplish? John is spot on. What did you accomplish? CRT, I mean, we all know the controversies with CRT, the accidents they've gotten into, you got that guy who died from that being blocked by the RMP, and then you have the numerous lawsuits that are going to be involved in that. That unit is being far as we know, it's been broken up and we believe it's gonna just be renamed with the Q teams, but it still stands that the unit is gonna be broken up right now. Okay. Now let's look at this drone program. Where are the drones right now? You know, is there a working drone on top of every NYPD precinct right now?
No.
Huh? Yeah. where the drones?
How much money did we
this
spend on the
tech that
drones?
he was supposed to do?
How much money did we spend on the drones, Marlon? Like, do we know? Do we even know? Do you know how much money we spent on the drones?
I don't think they ever put that out there.
They never did. They never did. And so, like that relates back to the DOGE conversation, right? Because let's get into the money. Let's get into the money just for equipment, right? Just for equipment. Look at the equipment. Look at the embroidery of Shell, Caban. Daughtry is the worst. I'm saying he's 6 figures over just on his own personal stuff. Never mind what his teams. God only knows what the teams are getting in embroidery. God only knows what they're not paying for, that regular cops are paying for. I guarantee uniform items that regular cops are paying for, the people that work for them are not paying for them. They're being given to them. Boots, pants, jackets, vest covers, things like that. Guaranteed. Hats. God only knows. Challenge coins, right? Remember the challenge coins? I don't think that's coming out of anybody's pocket, right? So like when we look at that equipment, like the drones alone, what did we say they were? I think we said they were like somewhere of like 25,000 to 50,000 each, dependent on the model. That's with the warranty, right? And I think they had a fleet of about 100 that they were going to bump up to about 200. But that's the minor expense in it, right? Now take all the guys they took off patrol to watch sharks in their natural habitat. While we have lifeguards and FDNY that already do that. So they did that. They watched sharks in their natural habitat. Then they moved them over to where they were going to monitor trains where kids were subway surfing on. That's not happening anymore. To my knowledge, that's not happening at all anymore. We had a whole team set up and they were just flying a drone from one stop to the other, back and forth all day, right? Now, what's the money in that to employ these people, to give them overtime, money towards their pension, all that stuff. But the other thing that nobody's talking about is they set up numerous command centers to run these things. Numerous. So the NYPD builds like this temporary makeshift command center, and it's not really temporarily or makeshift. It's a beautiful thing that they put together for them to be able to operate the drones from the roofs of the precincts, autonomously from one police plaza. That never happens. We're not even talking about that. So we built this whole command center. And then Kaz is like, no, I want a whole new command center, a bigger one. And they're working on building that too. When we look at that drone program, I'm going to say probably $35 million. Easy, without even blinking. It might be even closer to $100 million in the drone program, something that we said originally was going to go the way of the transit robot, because we remember how that went. And that's exactly what happened. Where are the drones? Has anyone seen the drones since Kaz Daughtry has been appointed deputy mayor?
What we don't talk about a lot of times is, especially the drones, it requires a lot of maintenance and repair. And maintenance and repairs is a high cost. We don't talk about it at all. But what Marlon, what you actually, I just want to reflect and piggyback on what you said, because you're absolutely spot on, that he gets promoted so much by rocket fuel that he's never in a position long enough for these programs to actually make it to its full fruition or even ferment. If we actually said, you know what, his ideas are good ideas and this program may work, we'll never even see these programs actually play out because he's on to his next position. You're right. He's been promoted so much by rocket fuel that he doesn't even know what position he's in anymore. He can't even identify his title. He probably has to go through his closet and go, oh, that's the wrong title. Let me get the right title, with the right embroidery on my shirt. So there's no doubt about it. I mean, Vaughn, I think that you're spot on. I mean, when we talk about this drone program, we had a whole display. John, remember a whole press conference where we had a police officer catching the drone, a whole show about subway cars, how this is going to be a block on social media, that, this whole plan that they have to stop the subway cars, and poof, we don't hear nothing about it anymore. Does that program even exist? And the answer is probably no. And Mike, you're spot on. We haven't heard any information to the public on what is the cost of the taxpayer for this drone program. What's the maintenance and repair? We don't hear anything about it. Nothing. What's the audit? I think there should be, if anything, there should be a DOGE effort. Immediately, it would be on manpower and the drone program. Absolutely. This would be the first thing they should put their fingerprints on, especially when it comes to Shark Week, watching sharks and in their natural habitat. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Crazy.
Mom, what do you think about just the maintenance and repair? The fact that just the cost of that alone. I mean, they have an entire unit addressed to this drone program, and we don't even hear anything about it. What's the effectiveness? What type of byproduct? What did it yield? What's the outcomes? What difference is it with the drones or without the drones? We haven't heard any comparisons. Never. Not once with Jessica Tisch do we hear, hey, this is what was effective about the drone program, and here's where we are now, especially when she's the technology commissioner. We haven't heard a word about that.
They're not using them anymore. The whole program fell to its face. The drone as a first responder is gone. It's over. That's it. We spent probably $100 million on it, and it's over. Yeah. Right? You think
and you'll never hear about it because.
Does anyone think that this is going to be something that you're going to see in the future?
Nope.
No.
You can't do it for policing. I mean, what was their bright idea to have it show up at your house for a 911 call? Like, that's ridiculous. That was actually a ridiculous statement that they made. Like, it'll show up to your house for a non-emergency 911 call. Who wants to talk to a drone from your home?
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be used the same way that it was used before Kaz Daughtry was an assistant commissioner. Taru's going to use it when we have hostage barricaded. They're going to use it the same way we've been using it for a decade. Kaz Daughtry didn't invent anything. He was like the drone commissioner. Shark Week might return in the spring to get another fluff piece.
Well, you know what
Shark Week.
What happened, right? You know what really happened to drive this drone program up. You guys called him out on playing PS5, and all of a sudden he had to swap it for a drone controller, and there you go. The drone unit started.
No, Mike, you're the only person that ever said that. Nobody.
That's true.
Nobody ever goes back to that point. That's how insane this kid is.
That's a fact.
That is a fact. What happened? I made fun of a PlayStation controller on Kaz Daughtry's desk when a kid who supposedly got jammed up, went to Kaz Daughtry's office and made him a plaque, and he went to see Kaz Daughtry. So Kaz Daughtry takes a picture of the kid with the plaque in his office, and there's a PlayStation 5 controller on his desk. So everybody knows there's a big private Call of Duty chat with a private Call of Duty game going on with Kaz Daughtry and the CRT, and they play it all night while they're at work, right? Well, I don't know anymore, but at the time they were doing that. So I said, hey, nice PlayStation controller, something like that, and I retweeted it. So Kaz Daughtry crops the photo out, takes the photo down, retweets the photo now with a cropped out photo. So I put up the original photo. I said, nice cropped out photo with the controller. And then he goes out and he makes an entire video.
Yeah.
And he starts off and he's on the side on his desk in a Captain America chair in One Police Plaza. I was actually going to buy the chair. I was like, I'm not going to waste my money. But I was going to buy the chair. And he's like this. And he's like, oh, hello there. I bet you thought I was playing Call of Duty. Well, I wasn't. And he goes on to proceed to show everybody an Xbox controller, which controls the drones. But what was actually on his desk was a PlayStation 5 controller.
I'm trying to find the old video.
And it sparked this whole media frenzy of how they're going to do the drone as a first responder program. I mean, that was probably one of the funniest things ever. Honestly, and Marlon made so many funny memes during that time. I was crying every day. He would put a meme, and there were tears in my eyes. It was so funny. That was the funniest time. But that's how the drone as the first responder. That's why $100 million in New York City was spent. It was because Kaz was butthurt because he got caught with a PlayStation controller on his desk. Another thing that you taxpayers probably bought for him.
That's exactly why the program started. Mike, I'm so happy that you called that out, because when we called him out for that PlayStation controller, that's when it really started to perpetuate, and this drone program took off. And it really was to defend his own ego. They could have just owned it and say, yeah, I play PlayStation in my office sometimes on my break. But that's what's the problem with this administration. They never own anything. They double down and they fight everything because they're little kids. They have
Like you say, to own it, right? Or he could actually be a man and take care of himself, right? And actually, if he can't be the part, he could at least look the part a little bit, right? Because presence is pretty much everything. Kaz also, like, if you guys want to go around eating all night and passing out and falling asleep at meetings, how about you hit the gym for 45 minutes to an hour and look presentable when you're out there in the media? Like, look presentable for the guys that you're supposed to be representing. Like, to me, that's one of the biggest things, bro. It kills me to see it.
No, I agree. So I got a question for everybody.
Yeah. So
I'll go. Marlon, are you on a delay, bro? I feel like you're on a delay. Like,
yeah, I think I am, bro. I think I am.
All right, what were you gonna say? Go ahead.
100% I think I am.
Marlon's sabotaged.
No, I was gonna say, are you guys ready to do it again? Because those drones are coming to the Parks Department, and I'm sure it's gonna come to the Sanitation Department too.
Good. Sanitation needs them, bro. Sanitation needs them.
Well, they keep flying over.
It's not just speculation.
My
They
house
already
in Staten
said it
Island,
in that
so
article.
they keep flying over my house in Staten Island, so I'm sure we're gonna get everybody, right? Because everybody's a big fan of the podcast. The Department of Buildings, Sanitation, Parks, they're all big fans. So they want to make sure everything's good, everything's on the up and up.
But that's what, that's what's so interesting we talk about, right? So it's interesting, right? If Mayor Daughtry got stuff done and so effective as he says with this drone program, since he moved on as deputy mayor, if this program was so good, why didn't someone else in the police department take over this program? Why did it just kind of like waste away and exhaust itself? Why don't we have somebody in place that's now taken over the system that you so-called built? If you built this effective drone program system, this drone first responder program that they have, why did someone take it over? Why is someone not standing up saying, hey, Mayor Daughtry paved the way for this drone program. Now I've taken over, and here's where we're moving forward. We haven't heard a word about it. You know why? It's because what you said, John, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore. Because really, that's what it was. Mike, thank you so much for calling out. It was combating New York's Financial Title Filter podcast because they got caught for the PlayStation, and this thing just went on. It fermented and went into this big show to just completely protect their egos. And now that he's the deputy mayor of public safety, who knows tomorrow what title he'll be, that program is gone.
So we know that this administration cannot handle funds, right? So if DOGE is looking at the funds, obviously we know about the whole scandal with the Craylo program, right? It's rumored that the Craylo program, the confidential rental auto leasing program, which is the NYPD utilizes to rent and lease vehicles that look like everyday vehicles, not with lights and sirens, that were being misused so that a certain deputy commissioner or assistant commissioner or other people could have 7 of them assigned to them when they were supposed to be used for confidential purposes, undercover operations, stings. So those were being completely utilized so that friends and family of Eric Adams could drive fancy cars with taxpayer-funded insurance and registration. So we know that was a huge misuse of millions of dollars. It was completely corrupt. Good job by Pam Bondi and Donald Trump for not looking at that at all. That's definitely efficient government. But now it comes out that the patrol cars are in terrible shape, and patrol and precinct cars and vans, the fleet is diminished. It's unsafe. And what does Jessica Tisch say? It's due to underinvestment. Underinvestment from who? Like, what do you think about that, Mike? What do you think?
Bro, I'll tell you right now. I've been to the Queens building many times. There's thousands of brand new cars in saran wrap that no one's using. And they're letting patrol ride around in the hoopties that are definitely dangerous, man. Like, they're dangerous to put these cops in every day to go do these routine patrols. It's not right. And I always ask that question. I never got an answer. Why aren't we using these saran wrap cars in Queens that are sitting there, nobody's touching? They're brand new. They're there. They're there to use. They could replace as many cars as they want. They won't. It's crazy. It's another crazy backwards NYPD thing that they do. All these brand new cars that nobody could use.
That program, first of all, is completely out of whack, and this administration has done nothing about it other than just enjoy the fruits for the upper echelon of the police department. We have rumored credible information that Kaz Daughtry, while he was assistant commissioner and also deputy commissioner, that he was having his kids transport around while he doesn't even live in New York City, that before he would get to work, he would go present for duty and his kids would be transported to school. He would do his dry cleaning from these Craylo cars. 75%, it's actually more than 75% of the marked cars for the NYPD are far surpassed their lifespan. It's completely unsafe right now. That they're, from what I read, approximately 44 to 60 months over their lifespan of what is utilization for the NYPD. Because there's certain criteria of how long a police car should be used and how long it's considered safe. Obviously, because it's used 24 hours a day, 3 different tours. It's used by different drivers. So these cars, they get beaten up a lot different than your own personal car. For anybody who watches active retired law enforcement, NYPD, or anywhere in the country, you understand that. If you're just a police enthusiast, think about it. These cars are going all day with different drivers, different speeds, depending on the calls. The lifespan of these cars is far shorter than what you would have with your car at home.
And you guys know that precinct mechanic is awesome at his job, right? Like he does the awesome job taking care of those cars that he should be doing every day.
Right. There's no doubt about it, right? And that's a good point to make up. Because we have such a shortage and there's a staffing crisis, right? And there's a shortage of cars. Every time you put a car out there to get fixed, the turnaround time has to be quick to get that car back on the road. We don't have enough cars. So are those cars going through the actual maintenance and repairs that they need to? Are they being properly inspected? This is a major safety hazard right now. Major. You know what? God forbid, a cop gets hurt because the mechanics of these cars. That's a major lawsuit, and that's another burden on the taxpayer because the failure of the administrations prior with these cars. I won't say it's just this administration, but this administration has taken it even further as they abuse the program with the leasing and assistance program with these cars. And Mike, I got to tell you, you nailed it because I seen it myself going down to the fleet myself when I would try to get hybrid cars to use for operations, especially when I had hate crimes or just trying to get cars that didn't have a light package. So we could do operations, and you would see all these cars that haven't even been unveiled yet, and still in cellophane wrapping. Like, what are they doing with these cars? You know who uses them? You're right. It's tier 1 of the NYPD, the upper echelon at one police plaza. They're the ones that use these cars for them and their families. Meanwhile, you have cops rocking around with cars that barely have brakes.
And you know what's crazy about that, man? Like, again, it's back to the presence, right? Like, you show up to a scene in a beater, like right away, it looks awful. You go to any other state, man. I mean, a lot of those guys get take-home cars. They take care of them themselves, but you don't see any beaters in other states, bro. You just don't. Everything's top quality, taken care of, and looks presentable.
Well, I just think, when you look at the mismanagement in funds, again, if you're the police commissioner right now, I become the mayor, I make one of you as the police commissioner. Is your Craylo budget going to be bigger than your patrol fund budget for cars? I mean, it shouldn't even be a quarter.
No.
Like, it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even, like, the mismanagement in the cars, it just shows the mismanagement in everything. And, like, that's hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money wasted.
I mean, we don't even have the units we used to have that really utilize the Craylo. So where is the budget going for that?
And what happens?
The friends and family leasing program, bro. The friends and family leasing program. We had a commissioner that gets whatever car he wants. Oh, I want a SRT Dodge Durango. I want a Dodge Charger SRT Durango. Guess what? He doesn't trade them in either to get them. He keeps all of them. 7 cars, 7 Craylo cars assigned to an idiot. Like, I'm like, are you serious? Like, this is what we're doing? How much money right there? 7 Craylo. You figure Dodge Durango, light package, $100,000. Suburban, light package, $100,000. Dodge Charger, light package, $100,000. You figure $1 million in cars, plus he's got like a $20 million security detail operating those cars between all the overtime and all that other stuff. So for one moron, we're paying
And don't forget the
$30
two.
million.
Don't forget the 2 occasions he got foot rubs across the street from the 5th precinct, which is a fact, bro.
On
Wait,
duty?
who are you talking about? You're
100.
not talking about Daughtry, right?
No, come on.
Come on. On duty?
Right across the street from the 5th, 2 occasions. Guys were like, oh, commissioner see he's going to come inside. Right inside the foot rub place.
He gets a foot rub first, right? Because
Yeah.
he needs to be relaxed before he does his work.
And dude, it's not BS. We used to stand at the squad window and watch it happen, and we're like, "There's no way this guy's going in," and went in 2 occasions.
Unbelievable.
Did he have his police commissioner embroidered to Bavera on?
Bro, he had everything on. He had
Why,
his detail out there and everything.
You know, John, you know what I'm thinking, right? The more that we talk about this, I realize that we still do have a DOGE type unit for the NYPD, but obviously just completely ineffective. What do you know? What unit? Risk management. If you think about it,
they kicked the chief out, bro. That was a charge.
No, I know, but I'm saying, but if you think about it, risk management, which is now what, Professional Standards Bureau, it's supposed to be like the DOGE. Marlon, you're laughing, right? Because it's supposed to be like the DOGE for the NYPD. They were supposed to make the assessments. Is money being allocated properly? Are we using these vehicles properly so that we don't get lawsuits? We're not involved in vehicle collisions to pay taxpayer money. But what was the assessment done? Are these cars actually? What's the liability that these cars that are not effective? What's the safety risk? If cops get into accidents, what would that cost the taxpayer? What kind of lawsuits can emanate from this? So to me, thinking about it now as we talk about this, risk management or whatever Professional Standards Bureau was supposed to be the DOGE for the NYPD, and obviously that's an epic fail.
Yeah, but Marlon told you what happened. If you do your job, you're out. So the chief that was in charge of it, Matt Pontillo, was doing his job, and he got the boot. He was like, whoa. What's going on with these car chases? Like, what are these rookies doing with supervisors that have no business even being on the street? These guys should have been thrown out of the NYPD. What's happening here? This isn't how we do police work. Threw them out. Then you have Tanya Kinsella, who's chewing gum, running marathons and going to parties, and that's the only thing she's doing. She's attending parties, taking photos, photo ops everywhere, and instead of monitoring the budget, and the budget gets completely blown out, and I'm shocked she hasn't got a deputy mayor spot. I'm shocked she hasn't got a ward. And then you have Wendy Garcia, who just quietly moves over to the corrections. We don't know why. And then Jessica Tisch says, "Oh yeah, any sexual harassment allegations are going to come directly to me now. Oh, I wonder what Wendy Garcia was doing. That's weird. Maybe we shouldn't look into that. Nobody should look into that, right? No. But there's Tanya Kinsella chewing gum. She's still doing her marathons. She's still doing the photo ops. And, we still have a team of photographers employed so that when there's a funeral or there's a memorial ceremony for Officer Jonathan Diller, that we could take 17 photos of Kaz at the memorial ceremony, so I could promote myself while at a funeral or a ceremony of a dead cop to honor a dead cop. Instead of honoring the dead cop, Kaz Daughtry is going to use his bully pulpit, his platform, to have photographers take photos of him so he could post on his social media him sitting there at the ceremony. Absolutely disgustingly disgraceful. Took everything in me to not tweet about this the other day, by the way, because I watched, everyone kept sending me his tweet, and it was all pictures of him. That's how you honor Jonathan Diller, by sending pictures of you. It's disgusting. Guys, are absolutely disgusting.
Shout out to Rich Raj, coffee and donuts, $20. Good morning to you, brother. Always putting his hand in his pocket. We appreciate it. Crow Eater says, we've been asking the same question. And I think, Marlon, you should answer this question because it's exactly what you just said. How is Kinsella still in her spot? Marlon, you got to speak on this.
That's a very good question. How is she still there? Especially since Tish called the situation intolerable, right? So let's jump back to the numbers for a quick second, right? according to Tish herself, it's 72% of NYPD vehicles are in poor shape, right? And with a budget, the NYPD has a budget of $6 billion, right? So now she's asking for $36 million more for the car situation. So you have a budget of $6 billion, but you can't find cuts in there to get new vehicles, right? And
she's a good manager.
Here's something else that's screwy.
She's data driven.
She's a good man. She's data driven.
Not to cut you off, Marlon. You know what's funny, Marlon?
She's not hearing us in real time. That's why.
Oh, that's
delayed.
Marlon, not to cut you off. We got to figure out your delay. But isn't it funny how they're looking for 36 million? Because it's rumored, and I got credible information, and you and I had spoke about this, that it was 35 million for Kaz Daughtry to get for the khaki pants unit to have to get a documentary about their unit. So it's quite interesting that that's the amount that they're looking for. And it was very good, credible information that Kaz Daughtry had gotten a Netflix deal to do a documentary about the khaki pants unit. Obviously, with the DOI report, the information, nothing came out of it.
In the whole history of the NYPD, we're getting a documentary on that.
Exactly.
That's what we're going to get a documentary on. Makes sense.
That they paid for it.
Yeah. That
They
makes
paid
sense.
for it, yeah.
That they paid for it. It wasn't even like an independent filmmaker. Like, yo, can I come in and I'll film this for you guys? I'll do it for free. No, we paid $36 million. Oh, and could you put them on the news every day and give them choreographed, scripted questions so that we could go on and tell people, none of our employees were rated. No, nobody was rated. Nobody was rated. They just
you see how they literally just dump on the whole history of the department, man. Like they want the whole history gone, and they want it about this new garbage that they're pushing now. It's sad, bro. You said it before. It's the laughing stock of the world right now.
It is. It really is. I know. I've been throughout the entire country. I'm here on the other side of the country right now, and people say it to me all the time. They're like, "What?" That's the response I get when I meet people in California or different states. As I was traveling around, and when they find out I was former NYPD, I retired. You would think it would be like, "Oh wow." Now the response I get is, "Whoa, what is going on in that city?" That's what I get. Like what is going on there? I'm like, oh, I don't even know what to tell you. Like,
we got 550 people on here. If you could do us a favor, if you could like, share, and subscribe. We've been under such heavy shadow ban, especially on X. I don't know what the hell is going on. I have no idea what's happening in X. Elon Musk, you absolutely suck. X sucks. It's the most edited platform I've ever seen, ever. I don't know what the hell's happening. I lose followers every day, and I tweet something, it gets 2 views. It's absolutely impossible that it has 2 views. And then the same thing, what's happening with the show is it's bringing down the numbers on the show. So if you guys could just retweet that, share it out, appreciate it. Comment, appreciate it. Marlon, what were you saying? We cut you off, bro, before we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, so after this, I'm just going to jump out to try and jump back in so I could get rid of this delay. But I was trying to say that Chief of Department has a budget of $700 million, right? That's Chief of Department alone. So I want to know, Patrol Services Bureau, their budget is $120 million. I'm sorry. And if you look at support services, it's around that same figure too. So, if Tish is so good with the numbers and managing, she's not doing a very good job of it right now. If you need to beg for $36 million just to fix the
time
cars.
I
want
to ask you, are you saying that all of Patrol only has $120 million budget and the Chief of Department's office has $360 million?
$700 million.
No. I'm saying the Patrol Services Bureau, the bureau itself has 120. Now there's a separate budget for the boroughs, but the Patrol Services Bureau itself, citywide, has a $120 million budget, whereas
the boroughs have their own
$700 million.
$700 million.
Which one? I'm sorry.
So
yes,
the Patrol
700.
Services has... Wow.
Wow.
For fiscal year 2025, the chief of department was $737 million. I want to know, what exactly does the chief of department need that massive a budget for?
Ask Jeffrey Management.
Cars
I'll
on
tell you.
such piss
How
poor
much
food.
is on duty booty program? How much is the cash for ass pro? What do we got there? 50 million?
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
50 million? What do we think for that?
Well, it's got to be at least 100.
And
What
what
about
about when we talk about DOGE efforts, right? What is the audit on what is this administration, especially this upper echelon of the NYPD, spending on media campaigns? What are they spending on media as far as propaganda? What are they spending to go on these different talk shows to have it orchestrated and choreographed for them? That to me, that's a major concern, is how much they're spending on media, the stage photo ops. What did it cost the taxpayer to escort Luigi Mangione? That whole display that they had of about 50 cops and a helicopter. What did it cost? What did it cost for Daughtry when he takes the helicopter around different places?
That was like a $4 million display, dude.
That's crazy.
I'm not kidding. You know what, John? You're right. It could have been $4 million. It probably was. Using a helicopter, getting him out of state, having 50, 60 ESU cops there. There's no doubt about it. The mayor there himself. What did that cost?
So Crazy 107, shout out to you, 999 to the podcast. He says, bottom line is the NYPD is an organization that on the surface alone hates most of its employees. The worst, most incompetent civil service welfare recipients ride the backs of a few competent, honest people. Yeah, 100%, dude. You nailed it. We got an email from an anonymous uniformed member of the service that we're going to read later. That's the last thing we're going to go through. But before we go through that, just one more thing on the incompetence. And if DOGE came in, literally every function that the NYPD partakes in, we'd be here till next week talking about it. But every function would fail that audit, and all of the people running each one of those functions would be removed from their positions and fired and sent off to pasture and go back to where they belong in a training program in McDonald's to learn how to be a entry-level employee, because they don't deserve to be commissioners. They don't deserve to be chiefs. They should be entry-level employees at places where high school kids go to get jobs, and they would fail miserably in that aspect as well. But before we get into that, I got a question for all of you. Mike, I'm going to ask you first. If I gave you a task to you don't know how to build a website. Let's just say whether you do or you don't know how to build a website. But I ask you, I need a website built. I need a website to be built that could encompass all places for people of low income in New York City so that they can access city resources on this one website. How much do you think you could get that built for? Take into account city procurement. There's going to be an additional monies there. Like, if you just had to guess off the top of your head, what do you think you could get this website built for? To just, all you're doing is pooling information onto one spot, and people could access all of these city services. Low-income people could access these services in one spot.
I mean, you could build a nice, high-quality website for not much, few thousand tops to build the website alone, and then maybe a small monthly fee to keep it going. Not millions and billions.
What do you think, Eric? How much do you think, like, if you had to, and be like frugal, like take whatever you want. We're just, we got $1 million for Daughtry's embroidery. Don't worry about it. What do you need to build this website?
I was thinking about that. I'd say about 100,000. I'd say 100,000 could actually, because obviously I don't know how to do it myself, so I need the right resources to get it done, to actually get a website like that done. Something that's all resources. I say about 100,000. Which on the scale of this administration, what they spend is actually peanuts, right? 100,000 for this administration is nothing, right? We just said it, right? Escorting Luigi Mangione must have cost millions. So 100,000 for this administration is nothing.
It's not even Daughtry's embroidery.
It's
not even his embroidered jackets that he autographs.
I think they spend seven figures when it comes to their embroidery. There's no doubt about it to me.
I look overall, when you combine them, 100% 7 figures.
And when it comes to government equipment, you always pay top dollar, right? You're not getting a discount. You always pay top dollar. So, because they're not looking at the price tag. They're not saying, oh, I want to get a discount 2 for 1. That actual embroidery, that jacket itself, what do you think that jacket he was wearing in that interview with that embroidery? To me, that was probably about $2,000 alone, that jacket with that embroidery. No doubt about it.
Yeah, like $250. But think about it. He's not
That's a
going
quality
in
jacket.
one jacket. It's about $250 with everything.
I think it's more.
You're right. He ain't looking at price tags when he's.
Come on, he's not looking at price tags. Exactly.
But he's buying in bulk, dude. He's getting it in blue. He's getting it in white. He's getting it in
Well, he's every city agency's hero, bro. He needs one for every
city agency.
What's a PlayStation cost?
He's the hero.
What's a PlayStation cost these days?
Marlon, what do you think? Seriously, what do you think? If I tasked you with that, I'm like, oh, you're the best. You're the best, Marlon. What do you need? How much money do you need to put that website together? Low income people to access city services with everything's in one spot. You want to get welfare, you need to get food vouchers, you need to get housing. All of their systems are built. You just need a way to access all of them. Like, how much money do you think you would need?
Yeah, I think Eric is spot on. You could do that for $100,000 or less. That's really being that's
generous.
That's not a conservative figure,
All right, so I'm going to tell you. So the reason I'm asking and the reason I'm pointing this out is because I'm going to say what city services and how inefficient the government is, right? The Department of DOGE is the Department of Government Efficiency. New York City is the highlight of inefficiency. Eric Adams is the most inefficient politician in America currently. So I'm going to say, like, just knowing city procurement, I'm going to say you probably need about $3 million to do a basic website that could cost the average person $5,000. So if a website costs a person about $5,000, the city of New York's going to need about $3 million. But Eric Adams, his ran on that he was going to do this one-stop shop for low-income people. So before Harvey Weinstein and steining everybody in New York City, before being Harvey Weinstein and saying, put this in your body if you want to work or you're not going to get a job, before he did that, this was his promise. He said that he was going to put this all together. So currently taxpayers have spent $100 million on a website to do exactly what I just asked you, gentlemen. $100 million, and the website doesn't work. And the website doesn't efficiently work. And the website, so the way that they did it was through like these weird procurement rules that you don't even have a timeline of what the functions are to build this website. So traditionally, if you're going to do a project in the city, what you'll do is, like, let's say the project's $1 million, right? Let's say the project's $1 million. So project's $1 million. What's going to happen is you're going to pay the vendor in portions, right? And in the portions, they're going to give you a whole timeline of events. We're going to complete this task, this task, this task, this task, this task. And as they complete those tasks, monthly or quarterly, they're going to send you a bill for all of the tasks they completed and how far along it is. And you're going to get up-to-date information. This is what these meetings are about. That people have meetings to. This is what the city has meetings for, to further develop projects, whether it's construction, whether it's implementation of drones, whether it's implementation of a website. That's how it would get paid out incrementally. But you would know what you paid for. And all of this is public information and could be pulled up by anybody, right? But not on this specific project. On this specific project, there is zero timeline. There is zero meetings. Nothing's happening. The controller doesn't see it. New York City Council is completely out of the loop, and no one sees a problem with this. So to date, New York City taxpayers have spent $100 million putting together a website that doesn't function and has no timeline for finishment. We don't know what they're up to. We don't know the failures. We don't know where they've been successful. And we have no timeline of how much more money we're going to have to spend to get it to function properly and how long that's going to take.
John, this is totally out of my wheelhouse. I know you worked with procurement. I did it. Totally out of my wheelhouse. But it's interesting to me. Is this like the normal percentage? So you're saying that normally, if the civilian capacity would spend $5,000 on some particular item, that it's about $3 million for the police department or a city agency? That's pretty interesting to me. That ratio is. I mean, it just goes back to what we're saying. Like, we're not looking at price tags. Is that normally the ratio? Is that's?
I mean, I'm just saying, just because of the technical aspect of it, and just because of the procurement rules, and let's not forget of the redistribution of wealth that happens in New York City daily. It's called, and if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's called the minority women-owned business rules that happen in New York City. So basically, any job function you have to do, you have to kick 20% up to a minority or woman-owned business, regardless of if they're even in the business. They just get to eat off the top. An example of that I'll give is harbor, right? Harbor boats, NYPD harbor boats have Rolls-Royce engines in them. There's one dealer in New York State that has Rolls-Royce engines. So the NYPD can't go to Rolls-Royce engine and say, I need you to fix my boat, how much for your engine and how much for the repair and the warranty. What they have to do is go through a minority woman-owned business. So they call some woman, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to say what it is. They call some woman who lives anywhere. You know, she has zero experience about boats. She has nothing to do, but she's a vendor. She's a vendor listed with the city. She's a minority woman-owned vendor listed with the city. So they call her up and they're like, yeah, we need that engine. She's like, yeah, no problem. She calls the Rolls-Royce dealer. She says to the Rolls-Royce dealer, NYPD needs that engine. They need you to install and they need you to do that. So he says, okay, no problem. No problem. I'll do it. Here's the price. She gets the price. She adds 20 to 30% on top of that. 20 to 30% on top of that. She sends the price to the NYPD. The NYPD says, great, I'll take it. She's like, all right, don't bother me. Call Rolls-Royce. And we just gave this woman 20% for doing what? I don't know.
It's interesting that you're talking about that, right? Because I've read up a lot about the women minority business, and it seemed more complex. Is that really the simplicity to it? Because that's insane. I've read about it, and I understand how that works, but is it that simplistic? It just it seems insane. They're just a middleman.
No, that's all it is. And all it is redistribution of wealth under a racist ideology. Oh, and by the way, if you're a white-owned business, we can't do business with you. If you're a male or a white-owned
I don't know,
business,
but I do want this middleman.
If we do business with you, you have to guarantee that X amount of your employees or X amount of people that work on this project are people of color or women. Not racist at all.
I thought it was a rotation. So that's what I thought it was rotation. Like, okay, these next 5 contracts will go to minority business, and then these next 5 contracts may go to government. But so it's every time.
If
that's insane.
So some things could only get done through minority women-owned businesses on MWBEs, and then ones that aren't have to have an MWBE policy in there where with an X amount of their subcontractors or X amount of their employees will be people of color. So basically hire people based upon their race and gender, which I thought was illegal in this country, but I guess it's not in New York.
That's what I thought.
This is how we operate, that's how we operate. So there's always going to be those excess funds because we need to redistribute wealth. So there's always going to be that excess money when you're talking about New York City procurement rules. So while everyone's listening to DOGE and you're listening to Elon Musk, if the things ever came out, what's going on in New York City, people's jaws would drop. You would find out that we could feed the homeless, house the homeless. There would be nobody poor in New York City. You would find out all of these things. You'd be like, wait a minute, where the hell's my money going?
I mean, do you think at some point it happens? They step in and start digging in New York?
I mean, I was hoping that's what was going to happen. But watching what's happening with Eric Adams, how they're just turning a blind eye. I mean, let's call this $100 million for a non-working website from New York City. I mean, somebody should be in jail. not somebody, numerous people should be in jail at this point. At least they should be fired. At least they should be fired. You're completely incompetent. You wasted hundreds of millions of dollars. This is pure incompetence. And it appears to me that the DOJ is turning a complete blind eye to Eric Adams, the NYPD, and they're not even looking at it. I haven't heard DOGE bring up anything about New York City or New York City contracts. So I don't think so. Something's happening there, and it's weird and it's wrong.
It's disappointing because I was always a big Trump guy, and I was like, oh, I can't wait. He's going to drop the hammer on New York City, and finally, things may get back to normal, and nothing, not a thing.
No, if anything, it's funny you say that, right? Because I think we're all surprised. If anything, it's gotten worse. Because now that the Department of Justice is behind Eric Adams could potentially be reelected and be the mayor again for 4 years. And we already know the havoc he's caused in New York City. It's the Great Escape. It's not a place of business. It's a horrible place for safety. And we potentially could have 4 more years. And it really comes down to thinking about it now that the probe in L.A. is actually just to divert from what's going on in New York City because, we don't have the numbers, but just based on the conversation that we have in our knowledge, it appears that New York City is far worse. And this is where we're at. I mean, so I hear it constantly. People text me when it comes to New York City. Trump is playing four-dimensional chess and all the time. What are you talking about? He's not playing check. I never heard this terminology. If he is, what game is he playing? Because I don't see it. I don't see the outcome. I know he's a smart businessman, but I just don't see it. What are your thoughts, Marlon?
I hate to say it, but I think as long as Eric Adams is propping up the hotel and commercial real estate industry in New York City, there won't be a DOGE audit, right? But I do think that such an audit or a similar style audit is inevitably going to come because the problem is that the city has a budget hole right now. And eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be so many different parts of the city all infighting for their share of the budget that we're going to have some sort of audit. Now, it may not come from the feds. It may come from the state because if New York City has a budget problem, the state's eventually going to have to come in and fix the issues. But so I think let's go back to DOGE for a second here. The mission for DOGE is been explicitly said by Elon Musk that they want to lower the deficit by $1 trillion and lower federal spending by 15%, right? Now, with that said, I think New York City should be a case study on what not to do because Eric Adams has said he's said numerous times how he wants to cut the budget. In not so much as outright saying it, but he has said it. The problem is, though, that in wanting to cut the budget and introduce new technology, you have to get rid of the waste and fraud in the system, which is what DOGE is doing. They're looking to get rid of waste and fraud in the system. The problem is Eric Adams is not getting rid of waste and fraud in the system, but yet wants to add new technologies and wants to change the way a lot of things run on top of that waste and fraud. And when you do that, whatever systems you add, whatever new technology you add, you're merely adding new bureaucracy and new inefficiency because it's built on top of the old inefficient system, right? In order to have efficiency, you have to clear the waste from what's there right now. You can't have it both ways. And the problem with clearing waste as it stands right now in New York City is that a lot of people won't be eating, right? A lot of those NGOs, a lot of those community groups, a lot of progressive organizations won't be eating if Eric Adams was to truly clear the waste and inefficiency in the system before introducing all these newfangled technologies. And that's why there should be a case study in what Trump is trying to do to America. So if you don't know what he's trying to do, the reason why DOGE has to do what it's doing is because America needs to grow its GDP to compete with China. We need to make stuff in America, but we can't invest to make stuff if there's waste and fraud in the system. So we have to get rid of waste and fraud in the system in order to efficiently allocate new money for it and to build up factories and build up our cities to compete with China. So this is a case that New York City is a case study in what not to do. And I sincerely hope the Trump administration is paying attention to it.
Well, I totally agree with you that there is a huge connection to the hotel industry with this. Obviously, you see the Woolman rank, you see the $1.1 billion to the New York City Hotel Owners Association. With that being said, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of waste that's happening in New York City. And it makes zero sense for the Trump administration and DOGE to not step in and properly go through some of that other waste. I get they don't want to highlight some of the corruption because it might lead back to roads they don't want to go down. I get that. But ignore those roads and go to the blatant waste that's happening in things such as $100 million to get a website that doesn't work. Things such as just today we have, I don't even know, 100 offices just transferred from precincts to transit districts. This is happening once a week. People are just getting transferred. Completely inefficient. We're robbing from Peter, who's failing miserably. We're going to a system that's failing miserably. Patrol. It's a shell of what it was 12 years ago. It's a complete shell of what it was. The way patrol functions is a shell. It's disgusting. And it's actually a great term, right? It's a shell. Because Shell was the one that had failed under miserably, but yet he gets promoted. So it is a shell of what it was 12 years ago. And I didn't mean that, but now that I heard it. So it's a complete shell. And what they're doing is they're just grabbing more bodies from it, throwing them in transit, which is also failing, and completely collapsing the control functions. And they're just going to keep saying, oh, well, you know what? Just report that online. We don't need to do that, right? And so the audit needs to happen. I get what you're saying, but there needs to be an immediate audit. And the fact that there isn't is showing a lot of incompetence in this government and in this administration. I'm not mad that I voted for Donald Trump. I'm not. I just don't like some of the things he's doing. You could go back to interviews I did where I said, I want to vote for him because he's the guy I want to hold accountable. Because Kamala Harris will not be accountable to the people because they haven't been accountable to the people for 4 years. And I'm sorry, everyone loves Pam Bondi. I think she's doing a horrible job. I think everything I've seen so far, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's my opinion. I could be wrong.
I think what Marlon's saying is that they have to deviate. They have to deviate from what the real plan is because they all have an invested interest because of the hotel industry and the real estate industry. There's no doubt about it. I think they looking to capitalize on it. I think Marlon, you're spot on when it comes to that. And that's the elite boys network, the hotels and the real estate. Now, when it comes to DOGE, I think we definitely need a DOGE effort on Corporation Counsel. We need a DOGE effort, an audit on how Corporation Counsel spends their money and how they just agree on all these settlements with these lawsuits. Because I would say, if I had to guess, that's probably the spot where the most misuse of funds come from is Corporation Counsel.
Yeah, the contracts by far, but Corporation Counsel is probably a few $100 million easy.
Well, that's a lot. It's a lot. I think it's there's no doubt in my mind.
Well, the contracts are in the billions, dude.
Yeah.
The lawsuits are a few $100 million a year, about $300 million a year. New York City.
It's a little more, yeah.
It's about $300 million. Some years it's been like $1 billion, but most years. Without the riot years, without the taxpayer-funded riot years that S.E. Gettin's talking about, he's like, Donald Trump knows that the leftist element will manufacture uncontrollable civil unrest. No, they cannot do that because we're funding it. That's what you're not understanding. We've been saying it. Go back to what we were talking about during the nightly riots in New York City, the recent ones. We're saying you're paying for this. You're paying for these people to be out on the street. Yeah. This money is getting funneled from the taxpayer to paid protesters. Really, rebel? You think that guy just shows up at protests and riots every day? You think this is what he does for a living? He has a house over his head, clothes on his back, food on his table. How do you think he's doing that? He's making more money than the patrol cop doing it.
Absolutely. They tell him what time to be there. Yeah.
Does CCRB put that out there? Do they put those numbers out with like their annual settlements every year?
Yeah, it's out every year. You go to the city law department, it's right there. They fight literally 0% of them. They just settle, unless in the cases where the city actually does molest you, or chief molests you, deputy mayor molests you, they fire you, deny your religious rights. They fight those cases, and in those cases, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars to not pay, even if the settlement would be minimal.
That's crazy, man.
It's like it's a complete mishmash of. So the most recent thing that we heard of is Tim Pearson, right? Tim Pearson was a deputy mayor of, I don't even know, some made-up name they gave him. Tim Pearson, some guy that's shrouded in scandal. He was a deputy inspector in the NYPD, good friend to Eric Adams. He's the one who taglined the crumbs. They just settled the case with Tim Pearson. Tim Pearson goes to a homeless shelter. He shows up wearing an NYPD jacket. The security guards were told by Phil Banks and the mayor to not allow anybody in, including the NYPD. Right? And if they have to get identification. So the security guard asked for identification, and allegedly, Tim Pearson tries to push the female security guard out of the way. When she tries to stop him, he chokes her. Calls the NYPD. It's all on camera. None of us have seen the video yet. It's all on camera. Calls the NYPD, tells the NYPD false things. The NYPD arrests the security guards. So the security guards now sue. DOI does a whole audit, finds that everything that Timothy Pearson did was illegal and wrong. He doesn't go to jail. Nothing happens to him. But what do you think happens? Who holds the bag for that? You paid for his lawyer. You paid for his lawyer because he was completely indemnified by the city, and they just settled yesterday. Articles in the paper now. They just settled yesterday. The settlement is anywhere between $100,000 and $1 million. And by the way, Tim Pearson, I believe, has 3 other lawsuits around sexual harassment that currently we are also paying for. And when those settlements come out, we will be paying for those as well.
I had done my research on this, and they're saying that up till now, just the legal fees, just to work on the 4 cases, because there's 4 cases pending right now. Now there's 1 settled. So there's going to be 3 more cases pending. But with 4 cases total, including sexual harassment and retaliatory behavior by Tim Pearson, costing over $300,000 just in legal fees as we speak. That's not including the actual settlement. So we have a settlement for this case, and those other 3 potentially could be $1 million settlements also. So we're talking about the failure of leadership. Eric Adams is responsible. He was supposed to remove, first of all, he was never supposed to appoint Timothy Pearson in the first place, one of his cronies. But since he did, Eric Adams is accountable and liable for the actions of Tim Pearson, and he didn't remove Tim Pearson. So that's a failure on Eric Adams. He's costing the taxpayer millions. We're talking about over $300,000 just in legal fees. Now we have a settlement that may be $1 million, and then 3 others pending. That's one person alone. And what are Eric Adams' cases costing the city? What are his sexual allegations costing the city? And these are indemnifications that we would never see for a cop. This is just, it's out of control.
So obviously, listen, DOGE, some type of audit needs to happen. Jessica Tisch is not doing a well job at managing because, like we just said, the budget's all over the place. Money's being completely misused, and yet she's looking for money for patrol vehicles. It makes no sense. Maybe take away Kaz Daughtry's embroidery, John Shell's embroidery, his nightly dinners out with celebrities, acting like he's Frank Sinatra, celebrating what? I don't know. He's celebrating the downfall of the NYPD. So we got an email yesterday from anonymous cop. Let's go through this email a little bit. We'll go step by step, and then we'll get out of here because we're about hitting 2 hours. This one, I think you guys got a little bit of time. You got like a half hour. So, all right.
Let's go.
So we get this email, anonymous cop, not going to read out where it came from, but it says, fix the NYPD. There is a crisis in the NYPD specifically. I will not be political or confrontational at all. I come to you in a spirit of respect and admiration for what you stand for. Please take these points into consideration. I think there is a way back and a solution to retention. Mind you, nothing is perfect, but I have taken a personal survey from friends and coworkers in an attempt to keep it simple. I bullet pointed what I have concluded. If you have over 100 arrests automatically you are applied to the Detective Bureau, and then they could reach out for consideration. You will have an actual detective investigators who know the job. If you work inside and don't have several arrests, being in your unit is the compensation. What do you guys think about that? Let's go around that one point.
I think you guys are detectives. Let's start with you. I think.
All right, Mike, what do you think about that? If you have over 100 arrests, you automatically get put in for the Detective Bureau. If you have an inside gig, that is your reward and compensation. You're not eligible for the detective rank.
I mean, I if you have an inside gig and you're not doing anything, you shouldn't be eligible to put in for the Detective Bureau. If you're out there working hard, doing your 911 jobs, making all these collars, absolutely you should be put in for detective for the squad. 100%.
What do you think about the number 100 arrests? Is that fair? More
Dude, I'm a little old school, so I think it's still kind of low. But in this era, I would say it's fair. It's more than fair than what we actually see happening now.
But would you agree that at least 100 puts you competent in the arrest process? Like, what's a number you think puts you competent in the arrest process?
Right now, I would say that 100 works. Yeah. Right now.
What about you, Marlon? What do you think about that point?
It's a fair point. I think I've always thought that being inside is its own reward. That's you shouldn't be seeing guys who are doing inside admin jobs getting promoted to second and first grade. But yeah, I think it's a fair point. But I'm also a fan of progression in the department. So I think guys who have that amount of college should move on to the next unit. You build. You go from patrol, you go to special teams, then you go to the squad, or you go from 100%. Patrol, special teams, narco, these units, and then you get back to the squad. Because I think you gain a lot of experience and knowledge going in those steps, as opposed to just making these quick, rocket fuel transfers or promotions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But like I said, I agree with the general point here.
I think it's a baseline, but there's a problem with that also. There's a lot of holes missing, and what I find is that, and you've probably seen it through your career, I saw plenty of guys getting close to promotion with 5 years on the job. And they said, well, you know what, I want to beef up my numbers so that I look good on paper to these other cops. And so they went out and they started making shoplifting arrests and making some silly arrests just to beef up their numbers. And I would say, is that really quality police work? And yet I had guys in special operations, and on paper, they didn't have a lot of arrests, because our focus was getting illegal firearms, and it's a rotation. When you work as a team, every time we went out and made an arrest, it was a team arrest. And then someone would actually take that arrest who's up in the rotation. But it didn't matter who actually made the observation, because you make those arrests as a team. But some of those guys had, 20 some odd guns in an entire year. So what are you doing with those arrests? What are you learning from those arrests? To me, there's a difference. If you're making an arrest by a 911 call, that's important. That's part of your wheelhouse as you learn the arrest process and you learn how patrol operations work and you learn the court system. But there's a difference between making those arrests and pickup arrests. And Mike, I think you'd agree. Pickup arrest is something completely different. It's something that's self-initiated, something that you or maybe part of a team make an observation. That's much different when you articulate to court about your arrest situation, that you had to paint that picture, than just a complainant on a 911 call. So what are those 100 arrests? What are you doing in that arrest? Just because you did the paperwork, did you actually have to testify? Because there's plenty of guys who've had maybe 100 arrests and never had to testify, because less than 10% of cases actually go to a trial. So did you ever actually have a grand jury? Did you have to testify? What's your credibility? What's your ability to explain these cases and follow through? People in the comments here are talking about 511 arrests. Are they important? Sure, every arrest is important. But if all that you make is 100 511s, what is your wheelhouse? Have you had exposure to all types of arrests? So I say it's a good baseline, and I understand what he's saying, but I don't think it's completely accurate. I would say for the most part, and I would say let's not say all, the majority of administrative positions, I don't think you're in a position to be promoted. Are there some exceptions? Yes, there's definitely some exceptions. But what we're seeing is just so egregious in these promotions that the nepotism equates to corruption. For someone to get second grade in 5 years and not have that exposure is a problem.
That is a problem.
it's a major problem. But I don't see this blanket of having 100 arrests work, because then you have guys. It's almost like a quota. You're gonna have guys run out and make sure they get that 100 mark. But what are they doing with that 100 mark? Are they actually doing it properly? Are they making arrests? And I say, to me, quality arrest is what's the condition that precinct or the area that you work in requires. If you're having traffic fatalities and you're making 511 and DWI arrest, and 511 is suspended license for people that don't know, then that you're making an impact on that precinct. If you're having a robbery condition, but you go out and you make shoplifting arrest, how are you making an impact? So to me, it's what is that impact? If you have people dying of overdosing, and you go out and you make drug arrest, okay, you're making an impact. So to me, it's a case by case basis.
It is, and I think back in the day when we would go to these medal days, we would all we would laugh back then, like guys getting a medal for 3 511s or whatever the number was, and then you have your other guys getting medals for like real deal stuff, and it does make a difference. You're right.
I disagree a little bit. I think that there is an important number there. Again, if you're going out on patrol as a rookie and you're telling me you only take gun collars, I think that you're a terrible cop. I think you know someone to get into a unit, because you shouldn't have. Why'd you even get placed in that unit originally, where you're out there in plain clothes, if you don't even have a baseline of some of those 911 calls, right? But I do agree. I had a kid on my team. I think he's probably a deputy inspector now. He was a complete moron. He had 300 and something collars. They were all horrible. He was a terrible cop. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. Couldn't drive the RMP. So I agree that the number doesn't necessarily matter. However, you have 11.
You're right.
You have a year and a half on the job, and you're a detective. And then you've been an inside gig the whole time, and now you're a second grader. So the number does matter, and it doesn't matter, And like, to me, there's different things. Tom Joyce is talking about people visiting the squad. There's no metric. Cop with 100 arrests could be a moron. Cop with 50 visits the squad for wanted debrief and own prisoners, elevates more of an example of a detective. I'm going to push back a little bit, because I worked around some real asshole detective squads. I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, 6, 6. Those guys, honestly, I knew more than they did. I saw more of their patterns than they did. Anytime I brought in perps with them, there was always an attitude exchange. So I didn't go in there much. I'll be honest with you, I didn't, but I was up on the patterns. I knew what was happening. There were a few detectives that were great guys in there that were on the ball, and there were other guys that really didn't want us knowing what they were doing and what was happening in the precinct, and would actually try to push us away from actually going out and stopping the patterns. And it's happened to me several times in my career. So I push back a little bit with it, because the anti-crime guys, there's always a little bit of friction. There's always a little bit of friction with the anti-crime in the squad. There's always going to be that. There's always going to be that. I don't know if it's for overtime purposes or if it's for glory. I don't know what that is, but there's always going to be that friction. So I'm going to say that just because you're up in the squad getting the guys coffee does not mean you're doing what you got to do either. But I agree that there's got to be a baseline there. And the baseline now is there is none. There's no time. There's no time in rank. There's no number of collars. And I agree with you. Not every collar is a great collar, but like, at what point do you say that this guy's eligible to be a detective when he or she has not even established that they could effectively manage the arrest process?
Yeah,
that's a big problem. If you have guys in the squad, you're trying to teach them how to do a case, and the guy doesn't know how to print, and he doesn't know how to voucher, and he doesn't know baseline police work. I mean, that's a big problem, dude.
Well, what do you consider the arrest process? Because to me, I consider the arrest process not just the actual fingerprinting and the actual paperwork. To me, it's the entire case. It's doing the paperwork and having the ability to actually speak to the district attorney and have that case actually make it past the district attorney's desk and actually,
dude, it's everything. Dude, it's everything. It's responding to the 911 call. It's taking the report. It's apprehending the perpetrator. It's searching the perpetrator. It's handcuffing the perpetrator. It's transporting the perpetrator. It's bringing them to the desk. It's the whole entire thing from all the way up until they get transported all the way up until you transport them down to central booking, like, and then going to the district attorney. It's the whole thing. You have to have a baseline number there. And I'm not saying that 100 is, because you're right. Like I said, that kid had 200 callers. They were all bullshit. They were all 911 calls, and he was an idiot. I'm like, and I'm like, but like, there's got to be something there. There's got to be some type of metric. So I kind of agree with the point. Now, the nuances in the point, yeah, definitely.
I think Tom Joyce makes a great point here. Tom Joyce, shout out to you, brother. He says if there was not a good relationship from precinct to squad, then the whip was a piece of shit. You're absolutely right. I have to agree, because as a special operations lieutenant and a crime sergeant, my experience with the good detective squads, the whips in the squad were good. And when, active retired, you know what a whip is. For anybody from the outside law enforcement agency, just a police enthusiast, a whip is someone that's in charge of the squad. It could be a sergeant, it could be a lieutenant. Who's your first whip, your second whip? These are the guys that are actually in charge of the squad. But, shout out to you, Tom Joyce. I agree. I tell you, I had some great experiences. The detectives in the 4-0, in the 4-2, in the 9th precinct, 7th. These guys were awesome, man. They were 5th precinct, just like you, Mike. You worked in the 5th squad. I worked in PSA 4, which is encompassed by the 5th squad. These guys were awesome, man. There were a couple of guys in there too. You were like, what is this person doing in the squad? But the overwhelming majority that were good, and I think Tom Joyce is right, it was because of the whip. So it goes back to everything that we always say. It's leadership.
You're always going to get a few guys that kind of question. Yeah. I'll say one of my biggest thing with like the crime guys or the special ops guys, and you're right, you got to have good bosses on both ends to kind of stop that friction. Our biggest thing was, if we had a case and we had a person of interest, like, don't go pick him up until we green light that. So a lot of our problems came premature pickups of guys that we weren't really ready for yet. But other than that, we really never had a problem.
I like I said, I think it was just the places I worked. They were slower, and like, I think there was just like dumb example. Like, a dumb example is, we had a pattern of burglaries going on. I come over the weekend, squad lieutenant, somebody you shouted out in here. I forget the guy's name.
Mike Walsh.
Mike Walsh. Was it Mike Walsh? Before I blast him, I want to make sure.
Well, you had up in the 1, 2, 3. It was Walsh, Alonji.
I'm pretty sure it was Walsh. Mike, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. You could blast me, and I'll apologize for it. But I'm pretty sure it was you. So I'm pretty sure it was you. I came in from the weekend. So it's Tuesday. I come in from the weekend. I run the reports from the weekend. I see that we get hit with a string of burglaries in the same neighborhood. Right. So I'm pretty sure, it had to be him. He walks in the muster room. He's like, "What are you doing?" Because we didn't have any computers. We had the equipment was horrible. I said, "No, I just saw we got a huge pattern going on like the day tour in Elterville, whatever, burglaries." He's like, "Yeah, stay out of that."
That was Mike Walsh,
and that's all he said. Stay out of there, right? And I'm like, why the fuck would I stay out of there, right? And like, to me, I'm like, I'm not fucking staying out of it. Like, you know what I mean? So then Caruli comes in, the SOL. He's like, what's going on? I said, nothing. We got a string of burglaries. I said, but the squad lieutenant just said, stay out of there. He's like, fuck him. He's like, let's go there. He's like, you got the 61s? I'm like, yeah. So we go to the first house that got hit. It was a side door. And I'm sitting down the block. I'm sitting in one of those like hybrid, like whatever cars, the Ford Fusions, makes no noise, tinted out. So it was sitting down the block, and I watch a car pull up, wrong side of the street, go in the side apartment of the house that got hit. It was the main house that got hit, but I watched this kid go in the side apartment. There's another kid and a girl in the car. And I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? Kid comes out of the side apartment. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to stop him. We take him on. As soon as he gets in the car, I take him head on. As soon as he gets in the car, there's jewelry and gold coins in the center console right in his car. I remember the 61, jewelry, gold coins in the 61. So now I'm like, fuck. I think we got the guy with the fucking thing. So now I call the squad. Walsh flips the fuck out. What the fuck are you guys doing there? I take pictures of all the shit. I send it to the squad guys. They're like, that's not the fucking coins. Now, I don't believe them. I'm like, get the fuck out. I'm like, that's got to be the coins. I'm like, it's got to be the coins. They go coins. They're like, it's not the fucking coins. I told you to fucking stay out.
Ron Lacy's keeping track of your F-bombs.
This was the real conversation, though. I'm sorry. Like, this is how we were really talking. They were cursing at me. They were pissed. They were pissed. They were like, we told you to stay out of there. That's not the coins. Now you got nothing. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. So now I'm like, fuck, what do I do? So I'm like, I start taking pictures of the coins. I'm like, am I really 250 in this guy? I have them all in handcuffs. And then, like, thank goodness, 911 call comes over, garage door right around the block. They had just burglarized their friend's house. I go to the friend's house. The friend's like, yeah, my friend just called me and said, oh, someone broke in my house. I was like, what's your friend's name? He tells me the friend's name. It's the kid I got.
With all the stuff.
I'm like, go through your house right now. Tell me what you're missing. He's like, my mother has gold coin. I was like, oh, my God. Right? So we bring them back. And what the squad had done in that scenario, what they could have done is just said, John, we have this kid targeted. Stay away from him. But they didn't do that. So now I have him under arrest. I go back to the house. I start running all my checks. I do the lead online check. He comes up that he sold jewelry from the other burglaries in the Staten Island Mall. And I'm like, so now I walk up to the squad. I'm like, do you guys know that he was your guy for all the burgs? And they're like, well, we thought it was him. I was like, well, he sold all of the other stuff, so he should have been identified. So, like, they screwed themselves, but they were pissed at me about the whole thing.
Well, I'll tell you, from working with Walsh,
they solved the whole. They got all the other collars, and I just took the one initial.
I'll tell you straight up, from working with Walsh, he will fight for the squad right and wrong. But if he found out after the fact that one of his guys didn't run a leads check, Mike's going to eat them alive. He's going to eat them alive.
I don't know what happened after that.
He definitely ate them alive. Do you remember who was running with that?
Bring him down memory lane.
Yeah, because I got a few guys up there that definitely didn't do the leads check, and Mike definitely ate them up after that.
But like, I was like, this was your guy, right? Like, you have probable cause. And if they would have told me that, dude, I would have left them alone. And then, like, I'll give another example. Same squad. They asked me to pick up a perp for them. I go to a halfway house. I pick up the perp for them. The perp was broke into Verizon. They said the perp broke into Verizon. They had probable cause it was him. He was under, right? I was like, no problem. I go to the halfway house, lock the guy up while he's sleeping. I pull him out. The door's open to his thing. I walk in, lock him up, pull him out. In his pocket, he's got batteries, right? It's freshly sealed batteries, like as if they came from the remotes from the Verizon thing, right? So I walk in the squad. I bring him. Now, you asked me to do you a favor. I did you the favor. I go get the guy without incident. I'm like, oh, yeah, bro, by the way, here's the batteries that were in his pocket. What do you want me to do with these? You know what I'll do with these batteries? I'll throw them in the effing garbage. And he throws them in the garbage. I said, yeah, no, detective, definitely. Good job. Good job. I said, we're just dumb guys. We just thought that maybe that they were from the remotes from the Verizon store that he broke into last night. But don't worry about it. And then he's like, oh, what pocket were they in? And I was like, I don't remember. I'm just a dumb cop. And I walked out. and like, it's just shit like that. It's like, that shit's unnecessary.
I'll tell you what, I gotta read this comment because Crazy 10-7 is spot on. This is what I had a major problem with. Crazy 10-7 says, NCOs pretending to be detectives interviewing a subject or even victims totally destroying a case before it even gets going. Marlon and Mike, you could probably attest to this because when former Mayor Bill de Blasio instituted the NCO program, anybody knows what his Neighbor Coordination Officer program, I thought it was really problematic. They wanted the NCOs to actually go into the detectives' cases and actually, for anyone who's active retired, you know what a 5 is, right? A 5 is another check or, part of the case. For anybody who's an outside law enforcement agency or a civilian or police enthusiast. So the detectives have their own case. There's divisions and it's an actual folder. And they wanted these cops to now go in who are neighbor coordination officers from the precincts to actually go into the detective's case and actually put in when they get video surveillance and things like that. So to me, it was compromising and disturbing to the detective's case. It was really problematic. How did you guys feel about that, Mike and Marlon, that, going into your case, especially Mike? I thought that was a problem. That's your case you're working on. They have these neighbor coordination officers going into case. Now they're pulling surveillance video where you might have wanted to pull out particular video, and it might screw up your timeline and how you work in that case. How did that work for you? Because I thought it was a problem.
It was, but if you like, I was lucky, especially in the 5th. I had really good NCOs that would check first before they did anything. Then you'd have, a few that would just get video. That was the biggest thing, guys getting video and not telling you. And then you would go try to get video and they're like, oh, we just gave it to so-and-so. That was a big argument a lot. But for the most part, we had a relationship with the NCOs. Like, listen, if you have this job to do, come see us, give us the info, and then put it in your companion case after we've seen it already. So everything lines up the right way. But I've heard crazy horror stories with NCOs and other places.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I think, I think Mike speaks better of that than me because I was already in Intel at that point. But I was always confused, like, what was the role of NCOs when you have the FIO there? And to me, it sounded like the NCO was like part conditions, part community affairs. And I just didn't understand. Like, I thought a lot of their roles kind of encroached on what the FIO was meant to do. And the FIO's office itself, there's a lot of friction that happens too in the FIO's office between the FIOs and the squads. And, there's been talk for years that the FIOs should have been part of the DB all along. And I'll take it one step further. I think anti-crime should have been attached to the DB as well, because, when you get to crime, a lot of those guys you're on your way to the squad here, and there needs to be more tight integration with the squad. It can't be like we have two competing interests, like the CO wants you to go after that guy and the squad is like, hold up, we need more time, So right. It's like, to me, it's like there's a lot of systems in the job that are really like inefficient, and they really shouldn't exist, or they should be part of like other bureaus.
yeah,
you're right, bro.
There is a lot of friction. I think you're right, dude.
If you're lucky to have a good precinct CO that works well with a squad CO, it's gonna be great. If you have that precinct CO that really don't care and thinks the squad's just renting space upstairs, that's when things really fall apart.
That was my major gripe with the job. I used to say the same thing. Marlon, thank you so much for pointing that out. Especially being special operations anti-crime sergeant housing. I always thought it was an unfair advantage for my housing guys to get to the detective squad, because when they're in housing, they didn't have the same relationship with the detective squad as the guys in the precinct do. Because if you're in a precinct, the detective squad is in the same building. They build a good rapport. They build a relationship. The housing guys, they build a relationship, but it's not the same. They're not in such close proximity. And I always said the anti-crime officers should be right next to the detective squads. You're working hand in hand, exchange information. So you're absolutely right. And that's one thing I always had a problem with. And it was always a suggestion of mine that the housing guys and the precinct cops are working with the squads, because especially the housing guys, even transit, cops, they don't have that same close proximity to the detective squads. So I always thought it was an unfair advantage.
Well, when you left PSA 4, it went right down the shitter, bro. There was no more working in conjunction with PSA 4 anymore, True. And a lot of people will say that if you ask them in the 5th. PSA 4 is just it's not a well-oiled machine. They're all over the place.
But it is like two separate entities, and I think Marlon's right. It should be like one. The crime sergeant should be in the office. I mean, there should be it shouldn't be we're all operating on different frequencies. Like, let's just have one joint mission, and let's say what the fuck it is. Like, let's call it really out. Like, yo, let my guys get this, or don't let my guys get this, or you guys get this, and like have a working relationship. And I think that's I think even today when I talk to a lot of guys, that's still missing on both sides. You get it from the detective version, and you get it from the patrol version. Right? There's still always that friction, and I think some of it has to do with glory. Some of it has to do with overtime. Some of it has to do with just stay the hell out of my shit. This is my job. But I think if everyone understood, we could all, because like everyone's looking at it from their own angle, and you're attacking it from your own angle, and you're not, it's just, I've always seen so much friction, dude. Like, especially being an FIO, being an anti-crime, being a crime sergeant, it was always like, I walk into work one day, 911 call, robbery, white Mercedes, plate accurately put over. I listen to the thing, squads walking in the door, 2 detectives. They're like, that's not the plate, boss. I'm not even dressed yet. I was like, oh, that's not the plate? Yeah. Oh, you I was like, you already conducted your investigation? Yeah, okay. I run the plate, boom, comes back to an address in Staten Island. I'm in Brooklyn. I run the people's names again that are coming out. I run the person's name. I get an address in Brooklyn, not too far away. Go to the house in Brooklyn. Who's sitting there? The white Mercedes Benz. Knock on the door. Perfect description. Answers the door. Do a show up. Bang. And I'm like, why? What was that about? And that still bothered me till today. I made it a point. We weren't even on duty yet. I went an hour early to work out. I was like, you know what? Now I'm going. Like, you want to play games with me? And I always hated that. Like, to me, or if you knew somebody was carrying and you didn't tell anybody, or if the other crime team knew, this is dangerous. Like,
it is dangerous. It gets
I'm
dangerous.
the FYO and I know someone's carrying a gun and I want to get the gun collar, so I don't tell the crime teams or I don't tell the squad. I would never do that. I'm like, and there's got to be more. And I really do like Marlon's idea. Like, because and by the way, those should be the people that are going into the squad. Right.
I mean, even like the DV units, right? Like squad gets a lot of DVs that really take up a lot of time, but you have precinct level DV units that do a lot of work, companion work in those cases. So we would try to give those DV collars to the DV cops. And again, it's like you guys said, the whip. If you have a good CO in your squad, he's not going to care if you're giving those guys collars. But we had a little, a Fruit Loop for a little bit that was, kind of fighting us on it. And it was really like aggravating because it's like, dude, we're getting hammered with all these cases. Like, what's the big deal to give these guys they want it. They did work on it. They want the collar. Let them get the collar. And we did the same thing at the end with the FIOs. We'd be giving them bird collars, robbery collars, because it was just overwhelming us with the amount of work we were getting. So there should be no reason why we shouldn't be able to give these things to these guys that are working with us also.
Coffee and donuts. Shout out to our brother, the System Unfiltered. Peace and blessings. Hope all of you are staying safe. $10. Love you guys for telling how it is. Eric, praying for full recovery for your son. Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate it. I'm just curious though, like, what are your thoughts on that, Marlon? Because I think that's a great point. I've been saying that a long time, and I'm glad that you actually said it publicly, as far as anti-crime being attached to squads. But do you agree with my assessment? Because I always thought it's unfair. And Mike, you know, you were in the Fit Squad. And John, you probably say the same thing. I know you were in housing, but you saw it yourself being a sergeant. The housing guys and the transit cops that are good cops working anti-crime, they're at a disadvantage in comparison to the precinct cops as far as getting to the squad because of the close proximity that these guys work. They're not working in the same building. I mean, do you think there should be some type of zone detectives, or you think that just all the housing guys and all the precinct cops and transit cops should be working at the detective squad? Should they have their own building? What would that look like?
Well, I think they would be like under the DB is what I think. Certainly for anti-crime, right? But I think the problem goes even bigger than that because, you know, a lot of times we didn't even know if the housing crime guys were working that night, you know? It's like totally two different departments, you know? Yeah. You could have you have housing guys rolling around. You don't know who they are, right? You don't know they're working, and you pull up on these guys and they're unmarked. You know, it's just you knowing how to spot a crime cop is what tells you that these guys are cops. Other than that, you don't even know. You know, you don't even know if they're looking for somebody over there. You know, it's like you have multiple police departments within one police department and nobody communicates. Even in a precinct, you have one of the problems I find is you have precinct commanders who don't set clear like boundaries about stuff. They don't. I think a lot of it falls on them to run a tight ship because like I'll add this. Like when I was in the FIO's office, the CO would come to us with crime analysis work, you know, and we're like, why are we doing this? We have crime analysis. A lot of times we get out the office because we know the CO that the FIO sergeant just had a meeting. And he knows the CO is looking for some crime analysis figures, right? So we got to get out the office quickly before he comes to us and gives us the work to do that crime analysis should be doing. You know, it's all about like running a tight ship. And a lot of these these commanders aren't doing it. If you have a crime team looking for people and working in the area, you should at least introduce them to the precinct special teams so they at least know who these guys are and knows what they're looking for. So
all right. So look, we've been going 2 hours and a half. Let's do lightning round and just get through these points, because or else we'll be on here for 7 hours. All right. Lightning round, 60-second responses. 60-second responses. Let's go. All right. You ready? Incentivize patrol in a positive way instead of making it a punishment to try to appetizing for the more common cop. Change up some rules and assignments and some perps that aren't afforded. If that's so desperately needed, why make it the enemy? If you want proactive and quality life of enforcement, you have to stop discipline for minor violations, body cam uploads, missing entries, etc. If there is a glaring deficiency, obviously discipline the officer. But that is the number one deterrent of proactive policing. Number two, the long, arduous arrest process. It has become a game of gotcha. Eric, go.
Hold on, let me set my clock. No, absolutely right. Absolutely right. These minor infractions shouldn't be disciplined. They should be actually just team training. They should be training, and that's what's important from leadership. It should be instructional to make the cop better. There's a difference, right? Discipline could be punishment, but it also could be corrective to make the behavior better. Absolutely, it should be trained. These are minor infractions. When you're going out doing intrusive police work, as far as minor infractions with the body camera or paperwork, can be overlooked. Shout out to Ron Lace in the executive perspective. He always says it. I remember him saying it. When he was my boss's boss, he always said there's mistakes of the heart and mistakes of the mind. So if it's a mistake of the heart, you know what? These things could be corrected. If it's intentional, that's something different, could be disciplined. So absolutely, I think it could be more instructional than it could be discipline.
Mike, what do you think about that and the long, arduous arrest process?
So I'll go right to the fifth because I've seen it 100 times. You walk in the muster room and the disaster ICO they have is basically telling all the new guys what they can't do, how they're going to get CD'd for it. Just they look the nervous wreck just looking at her speak to them instead of giving them confidence to go out on the street and doing their job. So now you got these new kids worried about my body camera. I gotta put this memo book entry in. I gotta do this. I gotta do that instead of going out with a clear head to do their job. The arrest process, dude. When corrections moved out of MCB and we moved in, it was a disaster. Like I could make an arrest in an hour, bring them down to MCB, and now I'm there for God knows how long, waiting on all boys to let us in. You know that part of MCB, Eric, where you walk in and you're waiting with your perp to get checked into the cells?
The tombs, man. I remember it well, yeah.
So you're standing in the tombs, dude, on video. There's 20 guys in the back that are looking at you, and yet nobody's coming out to take your body. And that could cut out 4 hours alone out of that arrest processing right there. Just come out and do your job, bro. Stop staring at us while we're waiting to get in. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. The MCB, the tomb,
your time's over.
The tombs. What's that?
Your time's over, Eric. You got your 60 seconds.
I'm going to add myself 20 seconds here. But the tombs is exceptional. The arrest process in Manhattan is ages in the dark. It really is in the dark ages.
Everywhere. The Staten Island was the best one, and even
Staten Island was the best one to this day.
Yeah. Everywhere. Marlon, go. Let's go.
Yeah.
60 seconds.
Yeah. So okay. First things first, we got to get more efficient. So we do have to get rid of some of that bureaucracy involved with the arrest processing. But I think standards have to be set in from the academy. Okay, you can't be like an overweight slob of a cop, and we can't have overweight slobs as the chief, and then not expect that the lack of standards is not going to trickle down to cops on the street. Okay, so we set standards in the academy, and those standards apply to everybody. Okay, then that way, once those standards are set, we can get rid of a lot of these draconian punishments for nonsense. Okay, and once we have that, we need a corporal rank for cops on patrol. Okay, corporal rank to reward guys who are on patrol and who are effective at that job. 60 seconds right there.
That's it. Yeah. Marjorie, Shell, Kaz. He wasn't talking about you guys.
John, you got 60. Go.
Go. All right. If they want to retain officers, they need to make the job more appealing itself. You get more bees with honey. Word of mouth is the greatest recruiter. We've said that numerous times on here. Most cops tell their civilian friends to not take the job. Most cops with less than 10 years on are planning their exit or voicing their regret of choosing the NYPD. Again, not all, but more than you would think. I personally know there are cops who vest. I personally know 3 cops who vested, retired with 15 plus years in the last year. That isn't normal, nor is this a good sign. They need to stop having the bright ideas. Mobile field force, transit surge, transport vans, Operation All Out does nothing as it does now. It just adds to the stress. It's just an extra kick in the pants that nobody needs. Post-2020 policing is different, especially the guys on patrol and in squads. Even inside personnel get beat up too. It's a reason for some cops to squeeze OT, I suppose, but that's not the majority anymore. Cops want to be able to see their family and friends more, to have a personal life, time to visit hobbies. We know it's a good job. We know it's not a job, it's a career, but that slogan, "It's the job," has gotten completely out of control. The job dominates most of people's lives. They are sacrificing way too much to get so little in return. If you want more people to be positive about it, lessen the scope and inspire cops to want to do good for their boss and community. Inspire summer months. Things step up. These busy commands need the extra help, but you have to meet the cops and sergeants in the middle. If you have a car, take it. Keep the lights on. Take breaks. Get better intel packets. Do it twice a week instead of 5 to 6 times. We need supervision to lead, not just babysit. Again, use discipline as a tool, not a threat.
Well, I use that extra 20 seconds, so I'll trade it off because I'm going to answer this in 10 seconds. That's it. Very simple. It's exactly what I always say. It's not the external pressures of the NYPD. It's the internal pressures of the NYPD causing people to leave, retire, vest out, quit, and not take this job. Simple, final answer. Done.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll echo Eric's statements too, right? A happy cop, if cops are happy doing their job, they're going to be happy when they interact with the public. You know, when I was on patrol and was detailed to Manhattan for a parade or whatnot, you know, we're all thrilled to be there because this was like basically a day off patrol, you know, and that reflected in our approach to the public. You know, I mean, we're in that detail and we're laughing, we're joking, we're all happy, and that's because we're all you know, we're all having a good day, and the quality of life in that particular period, the quality of your job in that particular period is good. So happy cop makes a happy interaction with the public. Simple as that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll agree. That was a good read, but I'll agree and say it is a career, but the job, it's not the job it was. It's never going to be that job again. Like me and Eric say all the time, there was days we didn't want to go home. Those days are over. Everybody wants to get out of there now. You're not working for people that appreciate you anymore. You know, even in the days of getting hits from Ray Kelly, like, you know, whatever, it is what it is. You took your smacks, but you worked for guys and girls that appreciated the work you were doing. Now you're just a number. They don't care about you. And you see it with all the people leaving. And word of mouth is definitely the best way to promote this job. And 100% right, man. How many people do you actually hear saying, "Oh yeah, to join the NYPD, man, it's a great job"? It's not great anymore. There's no perks, nothing to it. It's not the job it was anymore.
It's the internal pressures of the job. I mean, just think about the nomenclature job.
Eric, your time's up.
I'm taking more time. Because only 10 seconds. But we talk about, like, you know, Mike, we talk about Nancy Serliano because you and myself and John, we both worked for her. But back then, think about it, like a sergeant was a big deal. Like she was a sergeant. Like I didn't even know who my lieutenants were. Dude, no. I had no idea who the lieutenants were. All I knew, it was Nancy. I was like, she's the boss. Nancy was out there with us. We went to Nancy for everything. She was a sergeant. Like, did you even know who the lieutenants were? I had no idea who they were. And
I knew Mike Hinton. That was about
it, right? Like, she was in charge. Like, and if you had to ever go to the CEO's office, I had to go one time to speak to Bruno or something. I was like, do I need representation? Like, it was a big deal. Towards the end of my career, some of the cops would just walk right into the CO's office. There was no more rank. There was no more a sergeant to me was like, you're a sergeant. It was like nothing. I mean, back then, when you saw Nancy, like, she was a sergeant, like, she was in charge.
Yeah, dude. And you knew if you made a mistake, she gonna let you know about it. But at the end of the day, Nancy was always there with us, always there backing us up, always the first one on the scene, made the decisions. Now these guys and girls, they don't want to make decisions. Who's making a decision?
Nate H says she called a level 1 every day.
She had to, bro. She had no choice. Shit was getting crazy down there.
What you saw?
That's hilarious.
She's always one of my favorites, though, till this day.
She was hardcore, man. She was good stuff.
All right. So then more leadership training. It can't just be all patrol guy. They need to teach. They need to not just teach, but practice strategy, officer safety, morale, efficiency. This is a huge one. I'm aware times are tough and numbers are lower, but there simply has to be a better quality of life. That's the main reason people are leaving. Triples, several details a week, denied 28s, the leading cause of burnout, substance abuse, mental health, and resignations. The job has to stop being scared and throwing the kitchen sink at everything. It is having a complete opposite effect. They want the cops to take care, pride in everything. The job itself needs to do the same. It comes down to basic respect. The cops are treated like robots. In this age of enlightenment and self-help, this shouldn't be the plan as it is now. What do you think, Eric? 60 seconds.
I'll do 10 seconds.
But you can't take the third round. You can't take another round after Mike.
Shout out to Juju. Juju says Eric's not drinking water today. What happened, bud? Drinking my water. Well, that's because John's only giving me 60 seconds. But yeah, 10 seconds. Politics. That's it. Very simple. Marlon.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That. No, you go, Mike.
No, go ahead. I agree.
What is it? All right. The comment about the commanders. I think the problem is you get commanders who have very little actual experience being cops. You shouldn't be a commander if you have like less than 50 collars. You really shouldn't. You need guys who were in the trenches and who have all that experience, and they're gonna take that experience and apply it to being a commander and how they treat other cops.
Yeah, but I agree. It's not the money. I agree with him totally. It's the abuse, and part of that abuse is the schedule, right? Guys can't get off, can't see your family, can't be with your wife, kills your relationship, kills your mental, physical health. I get all that, 100%. This is the closest to being political. The PBA needs to step up, not even just more in general. When times got tough, the PBA and the SBA retreated, and we all see it. We need more visible delegates at roll calls and details. Cops don't want stickers and coffee anymore. We need change and representation. People feel absolutely abandoned. It's not about the money. The NYPD who stuck around are getting taken advantage of. We can do as many fluff news pieces and photo shoots as we want. End of the day is the fact that cops are leaving. If they don't figure it out soon, we won't have much of a city left. I said I wouldn't get political, but that's a whole different half to this mess that I simply don't have the energy for right now. I'll leave you with this. Detroit used to be a great city. Rome fell. New York City is flirting with its downfall. This will be one for the history books too. A post-New York world. We have nothing owed to us. The police commissioner and the mayor had better smell the roses soon, or it's every citizen is in for a huge problem. End of the day, I really do hope for a happy ending. We have the tools. We just need to do the work. All the best to all of you. Thank you for listening. Much respect and admiration.
I don't know. This one I might need more than 60 seconds. Mike, let me borrow 10 seconds from you.
Take 3 minutes. Take 3 minutes for this one. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going 5 hours.
I'm going to borrow 10 from Mike and 10 from... No, I'm only kidding. No, but I think let's start here. He's talking about the unions and the delegates. So, John, I always say this all the time. Let's start by getting the bylaws. I think that if you're in the union right now, you should actually get the bylaws and find out what your union's responsible for and what role you have, and start to see if you can take part in these meetings I think that's where we really need to get, is where you get more involved and not just depend on these delegates. I think that's where we need to go, is get more involved. The politics is insane. It's out of control. And there's no doubt about it. What he's saying is that every empire falls. And if you look at history, every empire has fallen, right? We hear that term all the time. I mean, Joe Rogan says it, right? Tough times create tough men, and tough men create good times, and good times create weak men. And then the cycle continues. And I think that's what's happening. You know, New York was in such a good place, and we had these maniac communists, former Mayor Bill de Blasio, and now even far worse with 2.0. Mayor Eric Adams just took New York City into the toilet. It's the great escape, and that empire is falling. And I say it all the time. The NYPD was the GOAT of policing. There's no doubt about it. The greatest of all time in the entire world. And no longer is that the case. It's the laughingstock. And I tell you, I travel throughout the entire country. And that's what people say to me. It's embarrassing at this point. You know, you almost want to puff out your chest like, wow, it was NYPD. But now what people say to you is like, oh my God, what is going on there? Because everyone is watching New York politics. New York City politics is right now criticized and viewed by the entire world. And it's a shame, and it has fallen. And the question is, could it come back? And I surely hope so. And I think this is where the rubber meets the road. It's us speaking out, our friends and listeners actually putting our feet to the fire. And it's the only way. If we stay quiet, it will never come back. We have to keep speaking up. So, Mike, thanks for the 10 seconds. Marlon, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I mean, I agree with you, Eric. The unions should definitely pop their head in more, talk to these cops. But I'm more of like a realist. I don't want to be like a downer. I don't think the city ever comes back from what's happening, because there's just 4 of us on here, and all of us are very good at what we did. And that's just 4 of us. We're not talking about the thousands and thousands of others that were very good at what they did that are gone. You can't replace this. There's no way to replace this experience and how good everybody was on this job. There's no way. And you see what they're getting in now. And I know a lot of guys will like, you know, they'll get upset if I put something on X of a cop, you know, making a mistake. But like, dude, we didn't see that many mistakes in our time. You know, you're looking at mistakes every day right now. That's unheard of. Not in the NYPD. Like you said, we were the best in the world at what we did. And now it's kind of falling down. And I cannot see the city ever recovering from the amount of people leaving and with nobody wanting to come in.
Yeah. So I've spoken many times about the fourth turning, right? So you young guys who are still on the job now, right? You tier 3 guys. Screw the politics, you know, screw that. You got to speak up now, because it's going to be your department soon. In another 5 more years, all the how many tier 2 guys are there going to be left, you know? And like I've said before, with the fourth turning, it's our generation that's fighting this battle now, so you guys could take over. It's not us that's going to be taking over. We're going to be like, in the case of all of us here, we're gone from the department. It's your department now. If you don't speak up now, you're going to keep being victimized, and it's not like you could walk out the door. A lot of you have 10, if not more, years to go. So your career is you're not even at the middle point really yet. So if you don't speak up now, you're going to keep getting victimized. And I'm saying this with while in the back of my head thinking about the incident in Transit 20. If you're those guys who are watching right now, you know who you are. You got to speak up, bro. You're already targeted, and you have to speak up. Otherwise, you're gonna get victimized, and this is your career. Okay, so wake up, guys.
Again, the NYPD, it's happening everywhere. Honestly, like, you know, we talk a lot about the DEI, and it's still getting pushed hot and heavy in the New York City Police Department. You know, this scenario happens in Miami, so I don't think it's a true representation of all law enforcement. But, you know, all law enforcement has adopted this 30 for 30 movement. We need to make the department 30% women by 2030, with having no goal on how they're going to do that. We know that there are women in law enforcement that are highly effective police officers, but the same way that you want to non-organically put someone's race or gender into things, which is illegal, by the way, but to enforce that number, we're going to lower standards and you're going to have lowered standards. This comes out of North Miami Beach, female officer. This is a terrible situation. I don't care if you're a black belt. I don't care if you're a bodybuilder. I don't care if you're a professional boxer. No cop wants to be by themselves and encounter this situation. Group of about 10 kids beating up one person. But the thing is, she locks herself in the car, stays in the car, doesn't do anything. She's ultimately suspended for it. I'm the only person in the country to this point that has put a lawsuit against the 30-30 movement. None of the Back to Blue people are behind it. None of the Make America Great people are behind it. None of the police organizations are behind it. And honestly, they all should be, because it's not an anti-police movement. It's an anti-diversity, equity, inclusion movement. And it needs to be eradicated through all law enforcement, because like Mike said, things like this we're seeing every day. It's systemic, not only in the NYPD, but it's systemic across the country. And this is a result of lowered standards. This is a result of the emasculation of police. This is the result of emboldening people that have zero fear of being arrested or the police. And part of this 30 for 30 initiative is, and what they say here, and I believe this video represents all of this. You see a person who pays taxes to be protected by the police getting completely assaulted, and the police having a complete inept response to this. Now, I'm not saying she could have done much here other than get out of the car and spray the entire crowd with pepper spray and yell and scream. There's not much different she could have done, right? But lock yourself in the car and sit there is definitely not an option for a police officer.
No,
right?
but look, you talked about the 30 for 30, and we're losing all like the legit females we have here to other agencies as well. So we're losing our good qualified females that want to get in the mix to other agencies,
because they're getting forced out by people who aren't qualified to do the job and who are being rewarded for not doing the job, while you do the job, you're penalized for it. So they're like, I'm going to go to a different state. I'm going to go to Jacksonville. I'm going to go here. So this is part of the 30 for 30 initiative. I believe this video describes exactly what's from their website. I'm going to read it for you. Research suggests that women use less force and less excessive force. I think that when we look at this video, you could see the women use less force and excessive force than Eric, Dim, Mike Smith, myself, or Marlon Bethel would have used in this situation. They are named in fewer complaints and lawsuits. Obviously, this female is going to be named and not be named in a lawsuit from any of these individuals, right? Are perceived by communities as being more honest and compassionate. I don't know how they came up with that. I think that is completely ridiculous. I don't know how they came up with that.
I love the data on that one.
Here's another one. Here's another one that's a little off the wall, and I don't know where they came up with the research for that. They see better outcomes for crime victims, especially in sexual assault cases. I don't understand how they're coming up with that number. I don't understand what research. I think both of those points are opinion. They're not. You can't really have research to back that up. But here's the one that always
boggles me. Tell that to Cain Velasquez.
But here's the one that boggles my mind. Makes fewer discretionary arrests, especially of non-white residents. Again, you could see that here. Not making a discretionary arrest. Again, this isn't a 911 call. This is a pickup job. Here are non-white residents mangling someone, and none of them were arrested. So I think the DEI movement is explained here, 30 for 30. Eric, what do you think about this video?
Well, if you actually look at those excerpts and those bullets, they're actually right. They make less arrests. They're less intrusive, less engagement. She locked herself in the car and did absolutely nothing. I don't expect anyone. I don't even expect, speaking of, we're talking about Cain Velasquez, a big, giant man who's an athlete, who's a trained fighter, to be able to get out of the car and handle that situation. But you have to be able to have the ability to utilize your resources. Call for aviation, call for assistance, call for backup, get on that radio, start to shut down traffic, something. But to just sit there in the car and do absolutely nothing is ridiculous. And what you said is absolutely right. We spoke about that when we interviewed you the first time you came on the podcast, and we talked about the badass females that we work with in the police department. And what do they all have in common? They had those masculine traits to do the job. They're now being replaced with women that are meek, timid, and docile. So this 30 for 30 movement is spot on. We're getting people that don't engage the public in this whole ideology that they engage. They engage minorities less often than whites. I mean, where is this data from? This is absolutely ridiculous. So what we're saying is that we're not. What we are saying is that we're not putting females in areas that have more of a high propensity for violence. It's unfortunate, but if you look at this country, most of the areas that have a high propensity for violence are black and brown areas. So that's what they're telling me, is they're not deploying their female officers to these areas. That's what I see. This is just a complete epic fail. This 30 for 30 movement absolutely should be it should be met with opposition. So John, if you're going to have a class action lawsuit against that, I agree. Because maybe I wasn't promoted to captain because it's 30-30 for movement. Maybe it wasn't because of civilian complaints. Maybe they felt that Eric Dim, if he was a female and had more meek traits and was more timid and docile, I'd be more effective and less engaged in public. Maybe I should have less engaged black and brown personnel. I should engage whites. I couldn't find the whites working in the South Bronx, but this is what they're telling you.
Mike, what do you think about this video?
I mean, you guys are right. You don't want to be solo in that mix, but you got a job to do, right? So you got to get out and do something at that point. You got to call it in. You know, maybe, I mean, they look like they're teenagers, so you call it in, maybe fucking drag the guy out of there if you can. But I will say this. Nancy's getting out of the car, whether she's alone or with a driver. Sabrina's getting out of the car, whether she's alone with somebody. I could go on with the names of people we worked with that are definitely going to intervene in this and do a job. But I just think it's crazy, man. Like that is just like that casts a bad shadow on all police. Just lock yourself in the car and watch a guy take a beating like that. You know, listen, there's sometimes where we're going to jump out in the mix of something. We're going to get banged up. It is what it is. Like, we know it. We're always not going to come out without a scratch. We're going to get scrapped up sometimes with a group. But that is what it is. That's the job we accepted. You have to take some type of action. That's
contact sport, right? Contact sport.
Yeah. I can't believe the beating he's getting. I mean, they're teenage kids. It's just crazy to watch this.
Marlon, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think the importance of standards, right? If you can't do it, or you don't want to jump out and do your job, I mean, like Mike said, it's a tough situation, but the worst thing you could do as a cop is do nothing, because the people are counting on you. When there's chaos around, people are counting on you to get in there and to solve it, okay, or to do something, okay? So the worst thing you could do is just sit by and watch something like that happen without doing anything yourself. But like I said, this is the importance of standards, is having the right people who can do the job, who are fit to do the job and willing to do the job. And like I said, they want to be there to do the job. So.
All right, listen, we're going up on 3 hours. Let's get last words and then wrap this up. Everybody, thanks for joining us. We had about 700 people with us. What do you guys got?
Yeah, listen, I just want to say thank you to our friends and listeners for sitting with us, having the stamina for almost 3 hours here. Mike, thank you so much for joining on the round table. I think we need to get Mike a show going forward. He's got a hell of a personality, got some great charisma. Marlon, as always, your insight, your intellect is very appreciated. Again, it just reiterates what we've been saying. I think he has 4 qualified men that should still be serving in the NYPD or some capacity of law enforcement. We should still be in that profession, right? So, we're cops turn podcasters, getting the message out there. And that's the reality of what's going on here. Is we've lost the quality. Marlon, you talk about people that are qualified. We lost quality personnel. It's not just men; it's women also. They're being replaced by women that are meek, timid, and docile. Men are being replaced by those that are meek, timid, and docile. And these videos are not. It's as John likes to use that term, a one-off, right? It's not something that's just going to happen here and there. It's become a phenomenon where it's become normal that we see these videos quite often, not just isolated to New York City, but it's throughout the entire country, mostly in democratic cities where we see this epic fail. So again, thank you, friends. Thank you, listeners. I hope you liked our ideology of a DOGE effort for the NYPD in New York City. Let's do better. Let's keep speaking out like Marlon said. We got to keep our feet to the fire here. Thank you as always. Thank you so much for the support to Derek. Let's fight cancer together. Let's keep bringing awareness. Please, if you have the opportunity, grab a T-shirt. It's on Mike's social media, on the website. You got the link. Please grab a T-shirt. It's the support is important. Thank you so much. Let's save our kids. Everyone, Be good. Have an awesome weekend as always. Shout out. Volunteer, brother.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Listen, guys.
thank you guys for joining us today.
You delayed. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mike.
Nah, listen. Thanks for having me on again, man. I always love coming on with you guys. The shirts, man. Go on my go on X, go on Instagram, click the link. It's going to be active for about another week. Just get the orders in, man. It's for a great cause.
What do you got?
Yeah, guys. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope everyone has a good weekend too. And yeah, just to keep it short, like I said before, you young guys, you need to step up. Okay. If you don't like the way things are going with the union, you got to run for delegate. You know, it's your department now. Like I said, your department, you're going to be the future of it. So if you want to have a department that's running efficiently and as it should, then it's got to be you that takes the reins at this point, because it ain't going to be us. Like I said, we're not there, and tier 2 has about a few more years until they're gone completely. So.
All right, guys. Happy Friday. We'll be back at you Friday. Excuse me. It's Friday. Have a happy Friday. We'll be back at you Monday live, 8:05. Have a few shows coming out for you next week. A couple of new guests coming on, so we're excited for that. And thanks, everybody, for joining. We'll be back at you. DOGE NYPD, DOGE New York City. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community, but who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901-BLUE. That's 888-901-BLUE.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?